What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 9JM. Chapter 77 Family Ethics Drama in the Royal Family. Advertisement. Snapped. Cross looked at the lovely and pitiful Earl Shanna, with a sunny smile on his handsome face. He stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers freely, and said, "I really can't find a reason to refuse the beautiful lady's request." Although the coup d'état came too suddenly and made things develop beyond his expectations, it was not completely irreversible. If he can protect the Duke of Ottawa and the Earl of Shanna and help one of them ascend the throne, he can definitely regain the friendship of the Bion Kingdom and complete the task assigned to him by Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Stubborn. Seeing this scene, the expression of the Marquis of Menkenpass suddenly darkened, and he coldly spit out the four ministers. Thanks, thanks. At the same time, Earl Shanna almost covered her mouth with tears of joy, and thanked her excitedly. Lord Ottawa. 990. Also remembered that Cross was very strong. Hope was rekindled in his heart, and he quickly responded. Colonel Cross, my sister's words represent what I mean. As long as it can protect my safety, I agree to all your conditions. And you only need to resist for a while. My Uncle Wong and Hebra's Admiral Army will come to rescue. Stop dreaming. The Marquis of Menkenpass suddenly waved his hand, interrupted the Duke of Ottawa viciously, and said in a grim tone, Uncle Laboon Iser and the Hebra's Admiral Army will never return to rescue you, because they themselves it's hard to guarantee. His Excellency Bartholomew will kill them both. As soon as this remark came out, no matter it was Cross, the Duke of Ottawa, and the Earl of Shanna, all of them changed their faces suddenly. You colluded with pirates. Duke Ottawa cried out, his face full of shock and disbelief. So that's how it is. Earl Shanna suddenly understood, and exclaimed in shock. No wonder the fortress guarding the canyon of the port and the sky fell so easily, and the kingdom didn't even have time to react. It turned out to be the fault of your aristocrats. Advertisement. No way. Who let my dear brother hold the military power of the kingdom, so that I can't ascend the throne for a long time? Marquis Menkenpass knew that the matter was exposed, so he didn't hide it immediately, and said bluntly, we didn't want to expose it at first. After all, such things as colluding with pirates are still too damaging to reputation, so we just worked secretly and slowly wiped out the power you have with the help of the Roberts Legion, but first didn't expect Marine to come too suddenly. Quote. Speaking of this, he looked at Cross with cold eyes, and said angrily, especially this B********* D sailor who suddenly appeared in Doma City last night and scared away that coward Bartholomew. Otherwise our aristocratic faction's secret release of water will definitely allow the Roberts Legion to enter Doma City and kill you royalists. After listening to the other party's words, Cross finally understood many things, but there was one thing he didn't understand, so he pointed to Celine and asked directly, then what's the matter with this guy? The king, Dorma 7, was sent by you, did he assassinate? Of course not. The Marquis of Menkenpass vetoed it without even thinking about it. Ho 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 ho. At this time, Saren showed playfulness on her face, sneered in a low voice, and said surprisingly, the person who contacted me to assassinate Doma 7 is naturally the Honorable Duke of Ottawa. As soon as this remark came out, all the people who came to the banquet in the entire castle hall were in an uproar. Although many people have already guessed in their hearts, they still feel unbelievable to be admitted by the killer who personally did it. Duke Ottawa's complexion almost turned purple. He hesitated for a long time but couldn't say a whole sentence. He wanted not to admit it, but he remembered that when Celine attacked Cross before, he said that he showed his mouth and said that Celine was invited by him to kill. For a moment, his brain went blank, and he didn't know what to do. You have the Royalist faction and Marine from the military faction to help you, and I have the Noble faction and the Roberts Legion to help you. Whoever wins depends on tonight. Get rid of this sailor and live with Ottawa and Shanna. Advertisement. And your mother, Andari, that BCH, if my mother didn't die early, she would be a shady lover, and you are just an illegitimate child, why should I compete for the throne with me? Ah. It's just that I didn't expect that Celine is actually one of yours. Don't look at me with that kind of eyes, you are the one who killed the father, not me. Marquis Menkenpass said coldly. Actually, I'm also curious, your father treated you very well, why did you kill your father? Marquis Menkenpass looked at Duke Ottawa coldly, and said with some deliberate taste. And even though I killed my father, I never thought of betraying the kingdom of Bion. You be **************** D, if it weren't for your existence, how could I have killed my father? Duke Ottawa seemed to be going all out, with an extremely ferocious expression, and roared full of anger. That dead old man, he recovered from his illness, healed and became sick again, but he didn't die, and he still wanted to pass the throne to you, AB********** D. You, a guy who colluded with pirates and betrayed the interests of Bion Kingdom, what qualifications do you have to blame me? After listening to his half-brother's big brother venting his anger, the Marquis of Menkenpass looked at him coldly, as if he already knew all this, and said in a flat tone, Celine is not mine. Man, I only found out today that he is Bartholomew's man, and that you were the one who assassinated my father, but it doesn't matter, things have come to this point, in one word, coal. It is said that killing people kills people's hearts, and what Celine said at this time is almost blaming Duke Ottawa for all the responsibility for the pirate invasion. Speaking of this, the Marquis of Menkenpass showed a smug expression on his face, and said with a chuckle, but now, it seems that I have the upper hand. Hearing the words of the Marquis of Menkenpass, the Duke of Otava suddenly raised his head, staring at the Marquis of Menkenpass with red eyes. The hatred revealed in his eyes almost seemed to swallow him alive. However, it is thanks to the Duke of Otava that Basalamu found a chance and brought Bion Kingdom into the current chaos. Celine said intentionally. After finishing speaking, the Duke of Otava gasped heavily, and stared fiercely at the Marquis of Menkenpass and Celine, the hatred in his eyes almost solidified. Let's finish talking. It just so happens that we are brothers. Although there is no Brotherhood 3.0, today we just happen to talk about everything. This made all the nobles and merchants of the Bion Kingdom look at the Duke of Otava differently. Many neutrals, and even members of the royalists even showed hatred in their eyes, as if they were blaming the other party for making the kingdom of Ang is in danger today. I only know that his patricide has been exposed. Advertisement Chapter 78 Saving People and Breaking Out. Advertisement. For Cross, the grievances and hatreds of the royal family, coupled with power struggles and coup d'etat, have been watched countless times in TV dramas and movies in his previous life, and how many times in history has long been used to it. However, this is the first time he has seen such a thing discovered in front of him, so it is quite novel. Moreover, he himself was involved in this matter, and he couldn't help but intervene, which was very strange. Felt like a actor. Happy to oblige. At this time, Celine smiled pretty, neatly arranged the long Lolita dress on her body, and then rushed out, stabbing at Cross with the red umbrella in her hand. Almost at the same time, Viscount Somon, who had been silent all this time, also strode forward and went straight to the Duke of Otava, obviously splitting up with Saren and fighting each other. Return to life hair needle 1000 books. Cross focused his eyes, and shook his head violently. The inexplicably long silver hair immediately shot out cold rays, like flying needles from hidden weapons, directly covering the whole body of Saren and Viscount Somon. Sai Lien kept walking, the red umbrella in her hand suddenly opened, and the whole person shrank behind the red umbrella 14. In an instant, those sharp long hairs like flying needles hit the umbrella surface, making a tinkling sound. But Viscount Suomen stopped, his body suddenly swelled and became bigger, and he turned into a dragon man with horns on his head, crossed his arms in front of him, and blocked those long hair like flying needles with his tough and powerful muscles. I only saw those long silver hairs hanging all over Viscount Somon's body, but they didn't penetrate too deeply. Immediately afterwards, Cross quickly stepped forward and kicked the red umbrella away with a flying kick. However, a cold light flashed in front of him, and he saw Celine holding an umbrella sword and stabbing him head on. Hiss. Cross took a deep breath, and suddenly raised his body a lot, allowing the sharp umbrella sword in the cold lotus seed to stab his chest. Clang. There was a sound like the clanging of gold and iron, and a violent turbulent airflow burst out, overturning all the surrounding tables, chairs and benches. No puncture. Celian's pretty face was startled, looking at the dark metal-like piece of Madara on Cross's chest. She couldn't help saying, "What a strong armament hockey. Bring it to me." Immediately, Cross yelled violently, reached out and grabbed the umbrella sword in front of him. Sai Lien stepped on her feet, and quickly backed up a few meters to prevent her weapon from being taken away by the opponent. Advertisement. At this time, Viscount Somon pulled out more than a dozen long hairs that were as strong as steel wires on his body, ignored Cross at all, and continued to go towards Duke Otava. Don't think about it. Cross let out a low cry, suddenly bent down and squatted down, stretched out his hand to press the ground, and activated the ability of the living fruit. A circle of invisible activation power spread out rapidly, almost activating everything in the entire castle hall. Father, Master, would you like a drink? B********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** tables and chairs, the dishes and wine bottles filled with food and wine, even the white tiles on the floor, they all came alive, with eyes and mouths and other facial features, jumping and joking among the crowd. Alive. Viscount Somon looked stunned. What ability is this? Sai Lian's pretty face was surprised, and she looked up and down at the few movable white tiles at her feet, feeling very familiar. Now, I have you all surrounded. Cross opened his arms, faced the crowd with a frantic expression, and said with a smile, "Go, kill them." As soon as the words fell, the expressions of the tables, chairs, benches, dishes, wine bottles, and white tiles on the ground changed immediately, and their eyes turned fiercely towards Celine, Viscount Somon, Marquis Mankenpass, and the guards present. The soldiers rushed. "Oh, damn it, get out of the card. Get out of here. Kill these monsters." In an instant, the entire castle hall fell into a chaotic battle, including Selin, Viscount Somon and others. All of them were in a hurry to deal with the attacks from all directions. Many guard soldiers panicked and fired indiscriminately, and the gunshots of bang 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 immediately set off like fried beans. The flying lead bullets also hit many banquet personnel in the hall. "Follow me." Cross jumped more than 10 meters away, jumped to the sides of Duke Ataba and Earl Shanna, grabbed their arms and ran towards the nearest passage. "Colonel Cross, can't you save a few more people?" The Duke of Ataba followed Cross passively, but he still turned his head to look at the crowd in the hall, and said anxiously, "Many of them are my royalists. Let them stay, they will all be." Advertisement. Brother Wong, don't think about it. Earl Shanna interrupted Duke Ataba directly, and said unexpectedly calmly, "Your Excellency Cross is the only one here, and you are lucky to save the two of us. If you add more drag down, the final result can only be that none of them can escape." Quote. Duke Ataba suddenly got stuck, and knew in his heart that what his sister said was right, so he stopped mentioning the matter of saving other people. That's right, if my activated army is here, it can save everyone, but with the gadgets activated just now, it can only delay for a while at most. Cross looked at Shanna appreciatively. Earl, I didn't expect that a woman like her would be calmer than a man in a critical moment. Boom, 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 boom. The next moment, a long eagle cry sounded, and a strong wind suddenly hit. Your Excellency, you should stay. Okay, okay. It must be the Roberts Legion coming in. The Duke of Ottawa said tremblingly, in a daze. Hearing what Cross said, the Duke of Ottawa rekindled hope, and said excitedly, that's right, Uncle Laboon Ishul and Hebra's admiral's army are the pillars of the kingdom, and they cannot be easily defeated by those pirates. She could hear that the movement from the bottom of the mountain was gradually extending to the top of the mountain. Obviously, the army of the Bion Kingdom was at a disadvantage, and might even be retreating steadily. Bang. Cross reached out and took open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket from the back of the giant silver eagle, and said, squeeze to fit 3 people, get up quickly, I'll take you out of Doma City. Suddenly, a wall exploded, a strong wind blew, and countless dust and gravel were swept away. However, Earl Shanna's beautiful eyes were flickering, and there was some uneasiness between his brows. Amidst the diffuse smoke and dust, a huge figure with the appearance of a dragon and more than 3 meters high appeared, accompanied by a deep and powerful voice. Cross listened for a while, then analyzed in a deep voice. The sound of such intense artillery fire shows that the royal army is still resisting, and Doma City has not yet fallen. At this time, the 3 of them came out of the castle hall and came to an open-air garden. The originally faint sound of rumbling guns suddenly became much clearer, accompanied by fierce shouts of killing, all coming from the bottom of the mountain. Duke Ottawa and Earl Shanna quickly covered their faces with their hands to prevent the dust from entering their eyes, but they also saw a huge silver giant eagle descending from the sky and landed in front of Cross through their fingers. Cross and Earl Shanna looked at each other, and he also knew what Count Shanna was thinking, and his evaluation of this woman in his heart improved a lot. The Duke of Ottawa showed joy, applauded repeatedly, and couldn't wait to climb on the back of the giant silver eagle. Put it down. First have notified Marine earlier. Sakazuki Vice Admiral is bringing people here, and part of my activated army has already been dispatched. It won't take long to reach Doma City. Cross comforted, and then rushed waving to the sky. Advertisement Chapter 79 Celine. Advertisement. Solman. Duke Ottawa shuddered all over, turned his head to look at the figure in the smoke, and called out the other person's name in surprise and anger. Your Excellency, you know that I am only loyal to His Majesty the King, so you shouldn't kill His Majesty the King. Viscount Soman walked out of the smoke and dust with cold eyes looking at the Duke of Ottawa. His tone was full of regret and hatred. You two go first, he is delaying time, stop talking nonsense. Cross patted Earl Shanna who was in a daze, then stepped in front of the 2 of them, and said calmly. For Viscount Suoman to catch up, Cross had expected it. After all, the opponent was a heavy unit. With such a size, the power of running alone was not something that simple activated creatures could stop. On the contrary, Saren, who belongs to the Agile unit, will be more troublesome, unable to ignore the siege of those activated creatures. The person who did it was Celine. If you want to avenge your father, you should go to Celine. Duke Ottawa answered Viscount Soman's words in a panicked tone, looking at the back of the giant silver eagle in a panic. Climb up. That guy who is neither male nor female is just a tool. Even if there is no him, there will be others, but in the final analysis, you are the one who hired killers and gave the order to assassinate His Majesty Doma 7. Viscount Soman shook shaking his head, he said in a deep voice. But don't worry, after this matter is over, even if I risk my life, I will kill that guy. After finishing speaking, his body swelled up again and became a huge dinosaur with the height of a 3-story building and a length of more than 10 meters. There were 2 wing-like horns on the top of the head and several rows of protruding scales on both sides of the back. Abnormal. In the next second, this huge and ferocious Carnotaurus roared, and rushed over violently, accompanied by the heavy footsteps off dong dong dong, but the speed was very fast. What? The Duke of Ottawa was frightened by Viscount Soman's aura, he let out a piercing scream like a woman, and fell heavily from the back of the silver giant eagle to the ground, even the golden crown on his head fell off. On the contrary, the silent Earl Shanna sped up his movements, calmly and quickly climbed onto the back of the giant silver eagle. Waste. Cross couldn't help cursing in a low voice, wondering if he had saved the wrong person. Even so, his movements were not slow, and he directly reached out to touch the bronze sculpture on the side, activating it and giving it life. This bronze sculpture is a mythical creature with a snake-like head, horned head, a crown, a protruding tongue that forks like a snake, a slender neck, and a head covered with fine snake scales like its body. The limbs are the front feet are lion feet, the back feet are eagle feet, the tail is slender, and the end is the scorpion needle of the scorpion tail. This is Angry Snake, a mythical creature worshipped by the Bion Kingdom. It is also considered by the Doma clan to be the existence of the patron saint. Even the emblem and flag of the Doma clan are designed with an angry snake. Everyone saw that the angry snake sculpture was like a real creature, moved its body in a very humane manner, and then jumped down from the stone platform, stopping in front of Viscount Suoman. B******************* D, dare to blaspheme the guardian beast of Bion Kingdom. Viscount Soman roared angrily, the fury on his body became even more violent, and he opened his mouth to bite the angry snake sculpture in front of him. The revived angry snake didn't dodge, let Viscount Soman's bloody mouth bite on his back, and saw all the white and sharp teeth sinking into its copper metal body. But almost at the same time, the furious snake's tail swept across, slapped Viscount Somon's neck with a snap, and wound it around several times. Advertisement. Go. Seeing that the enemy was stopped by his animated snake sculpture, Cross quickly reached out and grabbed Duke Atava's collar, and threw him onto the back of the giant silver eagle. Gee. The giant silver eagle raised its head and let out a cry, its huge wings spread out, setting off a frenzied airflow, and immediately flew towards the sky, while Cross also seized the opportunity to grab one foot of the giant silver eagle, and his body was taken up into the air. But at this moment, the silver giant eagle was about to fly out of the open-air garden, and a figure suddenly jumped up from the nearby roof, and a chilly light burst out as it waved its arms, like cutting a cream cake, effortlessly cutting the silver one of the eagle's wings was cut in half. Selene. Cross was shocked. He didn't expect the top killer of the dark world to ambush on the top of the castle and caught him off guard. With such a powerful ability to conceal his aura, his observation hockey didn't notice it in advance, and even discovered it at the moment when the other party made a move. Unfortunately, it was already too late. After all, his attention was on Viscount Somon below. Gee. The silver giant eagle kept screaming, although it tried its best to flap its wings, it still couldn't control its body, and fell crookedly downward. Moonwalk. As soon as Cross gritted his teeth, he immediately let go of his hand, then turned over and stepped on the air to walk, and one by one, he hugged the Duke of Atava and the Earl of Shanna on the back of the giant silver eagle. Bang 1. Afterwards, the giant eagle with broken wings fell down and hit heavily on the castle tower not far away. The heavy all-metal body was like a cannonball, smashing the upper half of the granite tower on the spot, and countless broken stones mixed with thick smoke were thrown out. He was just attending a banquet, but somehow lost a high-quality living creature. Cross's facial muscles twitched, wishing he could turn around and chop him up. Fortunately, he still has some rationality, and he understands that the most important thing for him at this time is to send the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna to a safe place, otherwise all the losses will be meaningless and futile. Hurry up. They are heavenly. Shoot. Shoot them down. Live or die. At this time, the Marquis of Menkenpass brought a group of guard soldiers to the open-air garden below, and found the 3 crosses in the sky. However, in order to prevent the duck in his hand from flying away, the Marquis of Menkenpass gave an order to attack with a cold face, and no longer asked for the Duke of Atava to be captured alive. Bang, 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 bang. More than a dozen musketeers immediately raised their flintlock guns and pulled the triggers towards the cross in the sky. The muzzle flames shone in the dark night. Amid the dense gunfire like fried beans, hot lead bullets fly out. Advertisement. Hateful. Cross frowned, quickly dodged, quickly landed on the top of the nearest castle, and put Duke Atava and Earl Shanna down. With 2 drags, even a shooting that poses no threat to him becomes troublesome. Little devil, die. Suddenly, Selene jumped over from the other side, and the umbrella sword in her hand turned into a little bit of cold light, covering Cross's whole body in an instant. Kanglang. Fortunately, I didn't use my real body to attack, otherwise it would definitely not be so good. Salien's delicate and pretty face showed a touch of fear, and then her body shook, and several identical Saliens immediately split from her body. Illusion. No, it's all real. Cross looked solemnly at the 5 Sarians present. Observation hockey couldn't tell the truth from the fake, so he couldn't help guessing. This ability, shouldn't it be the fruit of Paramesha? And such a strange scene, even the panic-stricken Duke of Atava and Count Shanna couldn't help feeling curious and strange. The lively expression, the red Lolita dress, and the umbrella sword with the red umbrella handle in her hand, all of them show that these Selines are also real. At the same time, this slashing attack returned its momentum unabated, and flew hundreds of meters extremely quickly, cutting off another granite tower in the middle. The angry snake, a creature in Babylonian mythology, is one of the monsters created by the mother goddess of chaos, Diamat, to fight with the main god Marduk, and is also the prototype of the snake-buying Shudella in Greek mythology. One blade flow flying mang. You fake loli who lied to other people's feelings, I didn't go to you to settle accounts, but you came here to die, then I will fulfill you. With a cold expression on his face, Cross drew his sword out of its sheath, waved autumn water with one hand, and easily intercepted all of Saren's attacks in a burst of dang, clang, clang, intensive collisions. Not good. Lian's expression changed slightly, and before she could draw back her sword to defend herself, she was hit by the oncoming slash and cut in half on the spot. However, at this time, although Cross split the opponent in half, there was no joy on his face, because the opponent's body slowly disappeared like a phantom, as if there was no such person. In an instant, Cross let out a low cry with a stern expression, and swung his knife vigorously, making a cyan half-moon-shaped slash. Suddenly, the familiar voice sounded from the side again. Carnotaurus, a high-speed predator good at running, is the fastest-running large dinosaur known, with a speed of up to 60 kilometers per hour, plus thin legs, high head, and thin tail, extremely long legs, also known as the Cretaceous cheetah. Cross turned his head and looked, and saw that Selene, who was supposed to be in 2 halves money, appeared not far away intact. It's almost, what a powerful guy Mao. Advertisement Chapter 80 Crazy Elf. Advertisement. You can tell my ability at a glance, it seems that you are also someone who has read Devil Fruit Illustrated Book. That's right, I'm the clone who ate the Paramesha clone fruit. Every clone of mine is me and my clone, unless all of me are killed. I can't beat you with 1, how about 5? In other words, I'll besiege you for 3, and I'll kill the 2 behind you for the other 2. Can you block it? The 5 Selians were smiling, and each of them said a sentence, but their voices were all exactly the same. The point is, they all have a delicate and beautiful lowly face, but they have a rough male voice, which looks weird and scary. The Duke of Atava and the Earl of Shanahu were watching were so frightened that they swallowed wildly and broke out in cold sweat. Especially the former, after a series of shocks tonight, almost collapsed to the ground. Stop playing tricks here. Cross squinted his eyes, carefully observed the 5 Selines in front of him, then put the scabbard of autumn water on the belt around his waist, and rushed out with one lunge, unexpectedly launching an attack on his own initiative. Seeing this, the 5 Saranians showed anger and shouted in unison, "You are courting death." The 3 Selines in the middle took the initiative to meet Cross, and the 2 Selines on the left and right separated respectively, heading towards the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna behind Cross. Scathach, scatter the bats. Cross's expression remained unchanged, but he just let out a cold snort, and the shadows under his feet immediately emerged as entities, and quickly split into bat-like shadows, flapping their wings like a group of real bats, quickly spread out in all directions. What is this? A bat? No, it seems to be a shadow. Damn, these things are biting me. Advertisement. The 5 Selines were all besieged by a large number of shadow bats. Not only could they not continue to attack the 3 of Cross, but they were bitten by those shadow bats from time to time, screaming in pain. Taking advantage of this opportunity, like a tiger descending a mountain, Cross went straight to the lone Salian on the right, and the autumn water in his hand struck down without hesitation. Bang! This Salian was startled, rolled over in a hurry, and dodged Cross's slash in embarrassment, but an invisible and sharp knife wind burst out, cutting off a section of the top of a raised house in front of her on the spot. Damn it, how did you find out? This Selene was startled and panicked, trying to stay away from Cross, attack range. Your avatars are very real, so real that observation hockey can hardly tell them apart. Cross chased this Sai Lien and attacked wildly. The autumn water in his hand was like a spear and a big halberd. The power of the move was heavy, and the opponent retreated steadily, and he explained in a deep voice, "But you forgot one thing, hockey, this ability is a unique power specially developed to counter Devil Fruit's ability. I can't tell your real body, but I can hear the size of your voice. After all, a clone is just a clone, and it is impossible to have all the power of the real body, otherwise the strongest ability is not Whitebeard's open black lens bracket shock fruit close black lens bracket but your clone fruit." Quote. Clang 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 clang. The long knife and the umbrella sword quickly collided together, splashing sparks in the air, as well as bursts of wild wind. Damn it. Selene gritted her teeth and drank softly, her pink percent white slippery percent delicate face turned red, full of shock and anger. Although the avatars he created only have 1/3 of the strength of the main body, he has never met a guy who can tell his real body at a glance. Find your true body. The most important thing is that from Cross's words, he noticed the shortcoming of Second Fruit's ability, which made him unbearable. After all, he had never discovered it before. Suddenly, Cross sensed the distraction of Selene in front of him, and immediately seized the opportunity. The autumn water in his hand stabbed out like a lion majesty, and then he raised one by one, and hit the umbrella sword in the opponent's hand with a "pian" sound, fall to the ground. Not good. Biak Selene turned pale with fright, and watched as Cross turned his wrist, and the black knife in his hand, which definitely belonged to the series of famous swords, slashed across. Sooner or later, a clone of Salian appeared with several shadow bats hanging on his body, bumped away the real Salian, and let his body be severed by open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket. Troublesome ability. Advertisement. Cross looked at the clone of Selene who disappeared like a phantom with a worried expression, clenched his left hand into a fist, and shouted in a deep voice, "Skaha, the shadow box. Hateful. Such a beautiful little big brother. It is not unacceptable to make a decision that goes against the ancestors." Almost at the same time, Selene, who had completed her transformation, covered her head and growled like a wild beast. "I am Randy Mashug." But in the next second, Cross shook his head vigorously, as if he wanted to get rid of the thoughts just now, and said to himself, "I don't want a big wave girl, I want a little brother. Ah bah, I'm crazy to fencing with a man." Celian's expression was horrified, and she suddenly recognized the shadow at the foot of Cross attacking her clone, and said in disbelief, "This ability to manipulate shadows, isn't it the ability of the dead Gecko Moria?" As soon as the words fell, he smashed the roof of the castle under his feet, and rushed to Cross's body like an arrow from the string. Wearing white hollow stockings, his slender right leg like a female leopard suddenly jumped up, like a spear it swept across Cross's head like a steel whip. If it is said that Selene looked like a tall and big lowly before, she even felt a little weak. So now, Selene has completely turned into a leopard-like vigorous female warrior, with a delicate and beautiful face, just like the legendary female elf warrior. Cross's expression changed slightly. Feeling the strong wind coming, he immediately raised his arms, and blocked the opponent's whip leg with a bang sound. Take your question to hell. Cross didn't have the heart to answer Sarian's doubt, and attacked Sarian again. Shocked, angry and flustered, Selene let out a low growl like a wild animal. Her body, which was only about 1.7 meters tall and considered compact in this world, suddenly became much larger. Gulu, are you kidding me? But the heavy force caused the air to vibrate, turning into a circle of air waves visible to the naked eye and exploding. Even the roof of the castle under his feet couldn't withstand the force of the collision and quickly cracked, forming a huge spider web of cracks. In the next second, all the shadow bats pounced on the remaining 3 Sarin clones, and then quickly fused together to form 3 black box-like cubes, trapping the 3 Sarin clones inside. His height has risen directly to about 2 meters, his graceful figure and slender limbs have grown obvious muscle lines, and there is even an obvious Adam's apple in his throat, which makes him look a bit more heroic. Cross looked at the current Celine, and couldn't help being slightly taken aback. His throat moved up and down, swallowing his saliva, and even stopped the movement of preparing to attack. Boom. Nonsense. Advertisement Chapter 81 The Angry Snake. Advertisement. What a powerful force. Feeling the astonishing power from the opponent's legs, Cross looked at the crazy Celian in surprise, but unexpectedly, the opponent transformed into a different body, and his strength really increased a lot. I am Randy Mashug. Celine stared at the flushed beauty, like a lunatic, growled and repeated another name of her own, and then punched and kicked Cross. Okay, Celine. No problem, Celine. Cross replied perfunctorily, his eyes full of regret. Such a beautiful ladyboy, but he is a lunatic. But the movements in his hands were not slow at all. He held the sharp and heavy autumn water and slashed continuously, colliding with Celian's fists and feet. At this time, Saren looked like a delirious lunatic, but her strength was much stronger than before. Just by hitting the blade of autumn water with the fist and foot wrapped around armament hockey, she could accurately block all the slashing blows, and can also fight back. Suddenly, Cross dodged sideways, and Saren just raised his leg high and slashed down, stomping heavily on the ground like a steel mace. There was a loud bang, and a powerful force burst out, causing the roof of the castle here to crack open on the spot. Immediately afterwards, dozens of dense cracks quickly spread in all directions, and the roofs with a radius of nearly 10 meters collapsed, forming a large amount of rubble and falling into the room below, causing a series of rumbling sounds. Shocking, there was a cloud of smoke and dust. Fortunately, Cross responded in a timely manner and directly used the moonwalk to vacate and return to the safe zone around Duke Atava and Earl Shanna. And Celine, who kept calling herself Randy Mashug, also reacted quickly, or more like a fighting instinct. Before the roof collapsed in a large area, she did a backflip and escaped from the danger zone. Jumped onto the top of a good Eve's corner. Razor. Immediately, Cross stepped a little bit, and the whole person flew forward as if disappearing out of thin air, and even formed a sharp orbit in midair. Almost in an instant, he came in front of Sarian. Chu Shui slashed at Sai Lian, but at the critical moment, the other party formed two people, not only split and slashed, but also punched Cross at the same time. Shadow Horn Gun. Scathach, who looks like a female shadow, formed a substantial black-purple spear, which stretched out at an extremely fast speed, piercing through Sarian's body like a black lightning bolt. Moreover, the power of the shadow spear did not diminish in the slightest, driving Celian's body, and with a boom, it was nailed alive to the outer wall of a castle tower hundreds of meters away. Advertisement. Almost at the same time, Cross also stretched out his hand to block the fist of Salon's avatar, then turned his wrist, and with the tightly clenched open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket slashed across the opponent's waist, with a soft, poochie, sound, he cut him in half on the spot. This Salon's avatar stared at Cross closely, the upper and lower body fell weakly downwards, and disappeared into nothingness in midair. Call out. Suddenly, the sharp piercing sound suddenly sounded. Without even thinking about it, Cross kicked towards the void next to him, using the moonwalk to deflect his body in midair. A piece of copper metal wreckage passed by like a cannonball, at an extremely fast speed, and set off a biting wind to blow the coat of justice on his body, and soon disappeared into the sky. Afterwards, Cross landed on the intact roof and looked back towards the source of the attack, only to find that it was Viscount Somon in the open-air garden. Viscount Somon, who was still in the shape of a Carnotaurus before, has turned into a human beast form again, and the metal fragments of the angry snake sculpture are scattered all over the ground. It seems that the difficulty of the all-metal angry snake sculpture was somewhat beyond the Viscount's expectation, and it took a lot of time to tear it into pieces. B********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Viscount Soman glared angrily at Cross on the roof, and bent down to pick up a piece of metal from the statue of the angry snake, ready to throw it at Cross. Cross waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "Sorry, I don't have time to delay any longer, let's meet again when we have a chance." After finishing speaking, he turned around and ran towards the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna on the other side. But before he ran out a few steps, he saw the Marquis of Menkenpas running up to the roof at some point, standing opposite the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna. "You actually found such a good-for-nothing to kill your father, it really makes me look down on you more and more." Marquis Menkenpas turned his back to the direction of Cross, and walked slowly towards the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna. "Man, Menkenpas." Duke Atava was also very surprised when he saw his younger brother appearing in front of him. He somewhat recovered his composure, and retorted, "That's because your excellency Cross is too powerful now, the top killers from the Dark World are no match. It's just a matter of ability, it's not a big deal." The Marquis of Menkenpas dismissed it, staring closely at the Duke of Atava in front of him, and said coldly, "But this is no longer something you can pay attention to. Follow me obediently. Ask for flowers." After speaking, he reached out and grabbed Duke Atava's shoulder. Advertisement. Duke Atava was startled at first, but immediately realized that this half-brother was not much stronger than himself, so he wanted to resist. B****************, D, how dare you underestimate me? How powerful you are. Stabbed empty. Before he finished speaking, the shoulder of Duke Atava was grabbed by Menkenpas' right hand. Before he could resist, a powerful force came from the latter's 5 fingers, as if to crush his body like bones. Ah! Lee. Really? Then let me see what you are capable of. Angry snake. B. The sudden change shocked Earl Shanna, who was next to her, and made her, who was smart, immediately realize that her half-brother was definitely hiding unknown strength. The most important thing is that whether it is the Colonel of Marine, the distinguished Duke of Ataba, or the clever and courageous Earl Shanna, looking at this strange beast transformed from the Marquis of Menkenpass after the creature, they couldn't help opening their mouths wide, their faces full of unbelievable horror. Suddenly, Cross appeared beside the Marquis of Menkenpass like a ghost, and the autumn water in his hand pierced the opponent's head like a lion majesty. In other words, only legendary creatures have such an appearance. There is no lack of elegance in beauty, and elegance is full of power. I saw that this monster was slender and vigorous, as if it was made of gold, and looked like a strange creature composed of several real creatures. In the next second, his body swelled and became bigger, the white shirt on his body was torn apart, and he turned into a golden monster in the blink of an eye. Humph! Cross let out a light snort. He didn't expect his attack to miss this arrogant and pampered guy. MNMMMM. Duke Atawa screamed, his expression was full of pain, and he almost knelt down. The expression of Marquis Menkenpass changed slightly, he let go of Duke Avada in front of him without hesitation, and retreated violently. At this moment, the Marquis of Menkenpass snorted coldly, and the pair of eyes looking at Cross turned into golden vertical pupils. The eyes were indifferent and arrogant, and there were even some fine golden scales like snake scales around the corners of the eyes. Advertisement Chapter 82 The Attack of the Angry Snake in the Carnotaurus. Advertisement. That's right, the patron saint of our kingdom of Bion, the legendary creature, the angry snake. The angry snake raised its head, paced gracefully in front of the three of them, and said in a clear voice. The head is like a snake, with horns and a crown, and the tongue that sticks out from time to time is like a snake. The neck is slender, and the head is covered with fine snake scales like the body. It has eagle feet, a slender tail, and a scorpion needle at the end. It is so golden that it seems to be poured from gold. If Cross and the others hadn't been blind, hadn't been hallucinated or hypnosis-ed, the appearance of the Marquis of Menkenpass at this time was almost exactly the same as the sculpture of the angry snake in the open-air garden before. It's just that the angry snake incarnated by Menkenpass is more shiny, more beautiful, more elegant and powerful than the copper angry snake sculpture. Angry snake. This kind of creature does not exist in reality. Cross looked at the angry snake in front of him seriously, and guessed in a deep voice, the zone phantom beast can be 4 or 5. Well. You have a good vision, it's zone, snake fruit, phantom beast, angry snake. Marquis Menkenpass nodded, and said without hesitation, now you understand my trump card, give up, you are impossible to beat me. No wonder. At that moment, the Duke of Ataba suddenly realized, he couldn't help stepping back again, and muttered to himself, no wonder he likes you. No wonder he wants to pass the throne to you. No wonder Viscount Suomen and the noble faction will join you, I bet on myself. No wonder. At this moment, the Duke of Ataba was devastated, as if he had lost his vigor and energy, and had no fighting spirit at all. Earl Shanna on the side also turned pale, and whispered to himself, it is said that the ancestor Domai had the ability to transform into a beast, raging snake, thus defeating the brutal world government and marine. So it is like this. I finally understood that my father didn't like the fact that the nobles opened up the second port, but he still wanted to pass the throne to Menkenpass. It turned out that he had the ability of anger, of the incarnation. Quote. Phantom beast. Angry snake. So that's how it is. Cross scratched his head and understood something. Prior to this, after the copper angry snake sculpture was activated, although it was difficult and deadly for ordinary people, for someone like Viscount Suomen, it should be able to smash it in a few blows. However, Viscount Suomen struggled for a long time before completely smashing the sculpture of the angry snake. At one time, Cross thought that this guy was just showing off, and was blinded by a rare ability of the zone ancient species. Now it seems that Viscount Suomen knows that the Marquis of Menkenpass can incarnate Raging Snake, so he is a little restrained and dare not destroy the sculpture of the Raging Snake, for fear that what he does will offend the future king he supports. The most important thing is that open black lens bracket Raging Snake close black lens bracket has a lofty status in the kingdom of Bion. Once Marquis Menkenpass announces that he can become the incarnation of open black lens bracket Raging Snake close black lens bracket, the wind direction of the kingdom of Bion will immediately change, and even many generals in the military will rely on him. Cross speculates that this guy has not announced his ability, probably because the Admiral Army of Hebras and Prince Laboon Ishor are die-hard loyalists of the Duke of Ataba, and these two have mastered most of the military's power. The Marquis of Menkenpass is more afraid, so he is going to use his ability at the decisive moment, or use his ability to turn the tables at critical moments. Thinking of this, Cross couldn't help taking a high look at this guy. He is young, but he has a lot of eyes. Boom. At this time, Viscount Suomen in the form of a human and beast jumped more than 10 meters high, like a heavy shell, jumped directly from the open-air garden onto the roof of the castle, and stepped heavily on two deep paw prints. See soldier, if His Excellency the Duke hadn't stopped you yesterday, I would have torn you to pieces. Viscount Suomen looked at Cross with a ferocious expression, showing a fishy smell as he bared his teeth. Advertisement. Don't talk too much, you are an idiot who is not like a cow, and a dinosaur is not like a dinosaur. Cross snorted, pinching his nose deliberately and said, and don't you know? Your breath smells so bad. Don't you usually brush your teeth? Sharp teeth and sharp mouth. The Marquis of Menkenpass snorted coldly, and shouted, let's go together, kill this marine brat first. After speaking, the Marquis Menkenpass in the posture of an angry snake moved on all fours, and rushed in front of Cross like a golden lightning. What a speed! Cross looked slightly startled, subconsciously raised his arm, and blocked the autumn water in his hand in front of him. Scandium. There was a loud noise like the clanging of golden iron. The surging air wave spread in a circular shape, knocking the nearest Duke of Ottawa and Earl of Shanna to the ground. Cross also retreated in response, and the whole person slid backwards like a translation, plowing 2 marks on the ground with both feet. Go to hell. At the same time, Viscount Somon attacked from behind Cross, running like a cheetah with 2 thick dinosaur legs. Cross's observation hockey sensed the enemy's movement, and before he could stand still, he twisted his waist, his whole body spinning like a top, and the autumn water in his hand also slashed out. Clang! The sharp claws and the sharp samurai sword collided together, also making a crisp sound like a metal impact, and a circle of twisted ripples visible to the naked eye spread, and then a violent wind pressure erupted, kicking up a cloud of dust. The two retreated as soon as they touched each other, and then stepped forward at the same time, attacking each other. Clang, 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 clang. Autumn water, I collided with the sharp claw several times in a row, sparks burst out in the air. Brazil claws. Suddenly, Viscount Suomen's momentum changed suddenly, he let out a low voice, and the speed of waving his hands increased several times, there were obvious afterimages, and there was even a strange whistling sound like a cut. For a while, the airflow was turbulent, and there was a strong wind visible to the naked eye, like a sharp blade, cutting the ground and leaving traces. Advertisement. Paper Arts hyphenation Point Willow Dance. Cross's expression remained unchanged, his body naturally dodged again and again, and he avoided every claw strike of Suomen's own in an extremely thrilling manner, like a wicker dancing in the wind, and also like a weird but beautiful dance. Your strength is obviously not inferior to that of Lilper, you really were releasing water last night. Cross looked surprised, but the movement in his hand was not slow at all. When he stepped forward, the autumn water in his hand turned into a sharp the black light slashed towards the opponent's chest from bottom to top. It's just that the angry snake created by him was subjugated by the Lord God, Duke of Mar and became a pet, so the angry snake became one of the symbols of the Lord God, Duke of Mar, and there is a relief of angry snake on the wall of Babylon. Be careful. In Babylonian mythology, the angry snake appeared in the creation myth. It is one of the monsters created by Mother Goddess of Chaos, Diamat, and used to fight main god, Marduk. Goddess of Chaos, Diamat. Babylonian mythology, she is the god who created all things, and she is also the incarnation of chaos at the beginning of time. She is the goddess of the ocean and the daughter of destruction. Scandium. What? However, Scathach stretched out his hands, seemingly ordinary, but tightly grasped the upper and lower jaws of Marquis Menkenpass, preventing him from closing his mouth. The 2.2 Marquis of Menkenpass was very surprised, but he still continued to bite the opponent's head without slowing down. Seeing this scene, Earl Shanna was a little relieved, and continued to remind, be careful, Rage Snake has ultimate destructive power, a flexible and strong body, and the ability to walk freely in the air and sea. One sword style last quarter moon. Count Shanna issued a reminder like a scream. Between the two, there was a shock wave visible to the naked eye. Leave it to me, father. At the critical moment, Viscount Suomen lowered his head, opened his bloody mouth, and bit the blade of Chu Shui quickly and accurately. Hiss. Suddenly, on the ground behind Cross, a woman with a black body revealing a slight purple halo emerged, just in front of the Marquis of Pa. Suddenly, the Marquis of Menkenpass neighed like a snake, and rushed to Cross's back like a golden lightning bolt. Skaha. Advertisement Chapter 83. Advertisement. On the open-air square of the castle, Marquis Lilda Bashara, who was dressed in a silver-gray gorgeous robe, had a serious expression, tightly holding the black cane in his hand, and the blue veins on the back of the dark yellow Madara's hand showed that he was working hard. Holding the cane. And around him, there are hundreds of guard soldiers holding torches, controlling the key points around him, such as city gates, arrow towers, passages. Master First Consul, Queen Andari's cronies and guards have occupied the treasury and kicked out our people. A general in black armor trotted over and reported in a deep voice. What a strong woman, but it's okay, then withdraw all the soldiers. Marquis Basharla said indifferently with his expression unchanged. Clear. General Heja bowed his head respectfully and saluted, then turned and left. At this time, another young knight wearing silver plate armor walked quickly, and said with a tangled expression, Mr. First Consul, the nobles in the castle hall are clamoring to see you. Marquis Bashara frowned, tapped the gray brick floor lightly with the black cane in his hand, and said to himself, what a troublesome guy, but I really need to be appeased. There are still many members of our noble faction. Having said that, Marquis Basharla paused for a moment, his gloomy eyes softened a little, and he looked at the young knight in front of him with a smile, and said, take me to 14, after all, they are still needed to stabilize the kingdom. What about the internal situation? PLZ follow me. The young knight looked respectful and turned to lead the way. Marquis Basharla leaned on a black cane and walked forward slowly. A dozen guard soldiers behind and around him also followed up, all holding shields and spears, protecting the first consul in the middle. Not long after, a group of people arrived at the hall of the palace castle. It's just that as soon as Marquis Bashara arrived at the entrance of the hall, he heard noisy shouts from inside. Let me meet His Excellency the Marquis of Menkenpass. I'm only a member of the aristocratic faction, I want to see His Excellency the Marquis Bashara. Why do you surround me? Not only am I a member of the aristocratic faction, but my sister is also the 13th lover of Lord Bashara. I am good friends with Viscount Somon. I am also a member of the aristocratic faction. Hearing the many familiar voices inside, Marquis Basharla's face darkened. At the entrance of the hall, he saw many members of the aristocratic faction making noise, including some nonsense from the neutral faction and the royalist faction. Due to certain factors, in order to maintain the secrecy and suddenness of tonight's coup d'état, Menkenpes and Bashara only drove a few of their cronies, as well as the highly reliable Suogate Viscount, so the vast majority of the noble faction did not notify the mouth. But it is precisely because of this that the aristocratic coup was very successful. Advertisement. Especially under the rebellion of Viscount Suomen and the palace guards, and the cooperation of Queen Andari, the coup d'état was completed almost quickly, and most of the nobles and soldiers in Doma City were successfully killed. Wealthy businessmen are all banned. It's just that they underestimated the young sailor sent by Marine, and actually rescued the Duke of Otava and Count Shanna in full view, and attracted Viscount Solman and Marquis Menkenpass to pursue them in person. However, in the view of Marquis Bashara, the entire Kingdom Palace castle fell into the hands of the noble faction, and the sailor could not escape from the net. Also on the other side, the Roberts Legion outside the city, with the cooperation of Menkenpas and Bashara's cronies, successfully opened the gate of Doma City and attacked the royal army 10 times. Out of reach. But although this coup was successful, it doesn't mean that their aristocratic faction completely controlled the kingdom of Bayon. As the first consul of the Bayon kingdom, Marquis Bashara naturally knew one thing, that is, pirates cannot be trusted. Although the Roberts Legion is an ally of the noble faction, it has hidden evil intentions. If the noble faction cannot stabilize the situation and quickly integrate domestic forces after seizing the rights of the Bayon kingdom, it will inevitably be backlashed by the pirates. Fortunately, after the Roberts army entered the city, the Admiral army of Hebres and Prince Laboon Isar responded quickly and quickly mobilized troops to stop them in the city. The two sides are now fighting fiercely in various places in the city, constantly consuming each other's strength, which makes Basharla secretly happy. I wish the double strikes could be as intense as possible. Of course, Marquis Basharla did not forget that there is another faction in the territory of Bayon Kingdom. The nearly 20,000 marine elite can be regarded as a dangerous big bomb. If it is not handled properly, it will also kill them all. Thinking of this, Marquis Basharla adjusted the gorgeous robe on his body a little, coughed lightly, and stepped in. However, seeing the appearance of Marquis Basharla, the originally noisy castle hall immediately fell silent, and everyone looked at each other directly, with panic, dissatisfaction, or longing in their eyes, a multitude of emotions. Noisy. Why don't you continue to quarrel? Marquis Basharla glanced coldly at everyone present, and said coldly, tonight, the overall situation has been decided. Although there are some small twists and turns, they will be resolved soon, so I hope some people better think clearly what to do and what not to do. After warning, he searched among the crowd for a moment, and said, Earl of York, Viscount Danbus, Your Excellency Geidel. Marquis Basharla called out a dozen trustworthy members of the aristocratic faction in a row, asking them to stand up and help him. As for the remaining people, they were still locked in the castle hall. But Bashara did not abuse others, but let those members of the aristocratic faction whose names were not called, together with more than 100 soldiers of the guards, guard all the members of the royalist faction and neutral faction until the situation in the kingdom was completely stabilized before proceeding. On the other side, after hearing Earl Shanna's reminder, Cross couldn't help frowning, and said to himself, Ultimate's destructive power, what kind of ability is this? It's similar to the destructive power of Whitebeard's shock fruit, or Kaido's similarity to the blue dragon fruit. All kinds of strange abilities. Advertisement. BCH. However, Marquis Menkenpas, who had turned into the form of angry snake, had fierce eyes and a vague and angry growl from his throat. He closed his mouth with a sudden force, and bit off Scathach effortlessly. Fingers. Shaka is a shadow, so naturally he won't be hurt by this level of attack. The severed fingers quickly turned into tiny shadows, and they were reattached to its palm, as if regenerated. Cross's silver hair swelled and stretched wildly, and before Viscount Somon could react, he quickly entangled it into a huge dragon meat dumpling. Returning life disordered lion hair. Immediately, Viscount Suomen's eyes turned white, he vomited blood, and flew out backwards in a whirl. Scathach had no expression on his face, and his body suddenly turned into countless bats, instantly surrounding the Marquis of Menkenpass. Vomit. This struggle didn't matter, but it directly broke most of Cross's hair wrapped around his body. With a low drink. But what happened next made Scathach know that he had miscalculated. It's useless, I'm a shadow. But in the next second, a golden 183-like scorpion tail pierced Scathach's chest like a spear. Immediately, Cross sank into his dantian, and suddenly yelled, armed color hardening finger pistol. Tie. Seeing this scene, Cross eyelids twitched, feeling something was wrong. The fist hardened by armament hockey hit Viscount Somon's abdomen like a heavy hammer. With a dull sound of bang, a circle of strong wind visible to the naked eye spread out, setting off a howling violent wind pressure. Viscount Somon turned pale with fright, and began to struggle subconsciously. Call out. Nani. I saw the Marquis of Menkenpass walking forward gracefully, allowing dozens of hundreds of shadow bats to gnaw and bite on his body, but they couldn't cause any harm to him, and they couldn't even stop him from moving forward. Arrive. Cross's fist fell into Viscount Somon's abdomen, and as if he wanted to make a big hole in his abdomen, he twisted his fist vigorously to achieve the maximum lethality. Advertisement Chapter 84 Fight. Cross vs Menkenpass. Advertisement. Open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket it fell on the ground and made a crisp sound of dang lang lang lang, and then saw Viscount Suomen like a spinning windmill, spanning tens of meters in an instant, and smashing heavily on the high wall on the other side superior. Accompanied by a loud bang, a strong wave of air and filled with smoke and dust soared into the sky. A circular pit with a diameter of nearly 10 meters seemed to be sunken out of nowhere on the high wall, and most of Viscount Suomen's body was sunk in it. The inside was covered with cobweb-like tortoise cracks, which made the hundreds of meters of thick wall even more difficult. They were all shocked. Cross let out a breath, shook his head casually, and the silver hair like a dog nod quickly grew out, picked up the autumn water that fell on the ground like a tentacle, and handed it to him. At the same time, all the shadow bats in the sky also returned, merging into a black shadow with a female body beside Cross. It's a good punch. I underestimated you a little. Marquis Menkenpass's eyes were serious, and the golden vertical darkness was full of cold killing intent. Don't be arrogant here. Cross turned around and looked at Menkenpass without fear, with a hint of mockery in his expression, and said in a calm tone, don't think that you ate a good devil fruit, don't put others in your eyes. The decision to win or lose Yamato depends on people, never on ability. That just shows that the ability is not strong enough. Marquis Menkenpass said proudly, I am the one who eats the fruit of angry snake. After finishing speaking, Menkenpass didn't want to continue talking nonsense, and rushed towards Cross directly. Clang. Almost at the same time, Cross swung a knife as fast as lightning, and directly slashed on the chest of Marquis Menkenpass, making the sound of gold and iron colliding. However, Cross saw with his own eyes that autumn water's sharp blade slashed on the golden serpent on the opponent's chest, but it pulled out a series of sparks, leaving a white mark, and did not cause other damage. The power contained in it chopped it off on the spot. What a hard scale. Cross frowned tightly, and exclaimed involuntarily. Although he only attacked tentatively and didn't make a full shot, he didn't stay on purpose either. This knife has 7 or 8 levels of his strength, but not only failed to break through the defense, it didn't even cut up a piece of snake scale, which is too exaggerated. I saw the Marquis of Menkenpass fall more than 10 meters away, turned over and stood up again, shook his body unscathed, and continued to rush towards Cross. Cross's face turned cold, and he held autumn water upside down in his right hand, and rushed out like a tiger descending a mountain, shortening the distance with Marquis Menkenpass in a blink of an eye. One-shot style judgment. Advertisement. Attack of the snake. Suddenly, a sharp cold light suddenly appeared, and behind the Marquis of Menkenpass, there was also a dazzling golden light shot out like lightning. The two collided together like lightning, making a crisp sound of pin, like the sound of gold and iron colliding. Not only sparks shot out in the air, but also a circle of air ripples spread. Tail. Cross stopped his forward pace, looked intently, and found that the golden light was a slender golden scorpion tail, which looked like metal and was extremely hard, but flexible and soft like a whip, and the scorpion needle at the top was extremely sharp. Marquis Menkenpass threatened menacingly. My angry snake tail can penetrate all objects, first let me make you a dozen transparent holes. After finishing speaking, he ran around Cross, and even accelerated in a second, and then the speed was so fast that he set off a hunting wind. Faster than a cheetah. Cross looked surprised and turned around quickly. Suddenly, in the void, the tail of an angry snake like a golden lightning strikes from behind Cross, and Cross turned around almost at the same time, and the autumn water held upside down in his right hand slashed backwards, so fast that afterimages appeared. Clang. There was a sound of gold and iron colliding, sparks shot out in the air, and the angry snake's tail that struck from behind Cross was deflected again. This time the block seemed to have angered Marquis Menkenpass. His running speed suddenly increased by a few minutes, almost forming a golden whirlwind, enveloping Cross in it. Angry snake thunderstorm. The next moment, the golden lightning seemed to burst out from the air, attacking the Cross in the middle from all directions, and there was even a dense sound of breaking through the air. They're all entities. No, it's too fast. Cross looked shocked, but he came to his senses immediately, and his body reacted accordingly. His whole body spun like a spinning top, and quickly waved the autumn water in his hand. Clang 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 clang. Clang 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 clang. All over the sky, the golden lightning strikes the high-speed rotating blade top, and it actually makes a series of dense sounds, like the sound of gold and iron colliding with swords, and there are surging air waves that rise higher and higher, setting off smoke and dust that soars into the sky. With such an unpredictable scene, the Duke of Otava and Count Shanna, who were not far away, were dazzled and couldn't see the figures of the two sides clearly. Advertisement. After attacking continuously for more than 10 seconds, Marquis Menkenpass suddenly stopped attacking, and the golden lightning all over the sky disappeared, and Cross, who was in defense, stopped spinning immediately after. But in the next second, Cross suddenly stepped forward, and the autumn water in his hand almost pierced the air, and went straight to the head of Marquis Menkenpass. However, before Cross could finish his sarcasm, the black shadow box was pierced by a golden scorpion tail, interrupting his next words. You forgot, I still have a helper. Cross sneered and said, Skaha shadow box. At this moment, Marquis Menkenpass stared at his shadow in astonishment, because he found that the shadow-like creature had merged with his own shadow. Marquis Menkenpass was not in a panic either. The scorpion-tailed furious snake tail on his back was thrown out like a whip, and directly missed Cross, stabbing attack. However, before the Marquis of Menkenpass was completely out of trouble, Skathich turned into a shadow again and took the initiative to break away from the opponent. Laugh. Just relying on things to trap me. The seal of Shadow Box has expired, so there is no need to maintain it. Not good. The angry voice of Marquis Menkenpass came from inside the shadow box, and then a pair of lion claw-like hands tore the gap even wider. It turned out that Scathach didn't know when he was behind the opponent, and his figure emerged from the ground. Huh, clang. As soon as the voice fell, Scathach's body turned into a big black cloth, wrapped Menken Good, Marquis of Pass in it, and then formed a black box-like cube, trapping him inside. The Marquis of Menkenpass noticed the abnormality, and just wanted to control the tail to attack the enemy behind him, but was grabbed by the tail by Skaha. Cross smiled contemptuously, and said, "What ultimates attack? That's it, it's 2. The blow failed, and instead of being angry, Cross was overjoyed, and instead looked behind Marquis Menkenpass. Advertisement Chapter 85 Fatal Shooting. Advertisement. Oh damn, get out of my shadow. Menkenpass was frightened and angry, and without thinking much, he raised his tail and yanked towards the shadow on the ground. Bang. The tail of the scorpion tail is like a steel whip, and it contains a huge force, smashing the top of the castle on the ground in one fell swoop. A large number of cracks appeared, and the click, click, quickly extended in all directions. In the next second, there was only a sound of bang, and the roof of the castle with an area of 200 square meters collapsed into countless pieces on the spot. As this a fort shot, Cross showed astonishment, and watched helplessly as the roof under his feet collapsed, and the whole person fell, and a strong sense of weightlessness appeared instantly. Rumbling. A large number of stones fell, blocking the rooms and passages below, stirring up smoke and dust that soared into the sky. Ah, help! Help! At this time, the Duke of Atava and the Earl of Shanna also fell down together with a large amount of gravel, and their horrified cries almost shattered the eardrums of others. Moonwalk. Cross reacted suddenly, immediately adjusted his body balance in midair, and then walked in the air like stepping on an invisible ladder. The Duke of Atava and the Earl of Shanna are just ordinary people. If they fall from such a high place and fall on a pile of rocks, their lives are bound to be in danger. You still want to save people? Get out of here first. Suddenly, the 347 Marquis of Menkenpass came running in the air, as if walking on the ground, directly hitting Cross's body like a shell. Cross only had time to turn his body, put the autumn water in his hand across his chest, and then felt an unrivaled terrifying force attack, as if hit by a high-speed sea train. In midair, a ring of strong wind visible to the naked eye diffused in a circular shape. Cross felt that half of his body was numb. He couldn't control his body at all. He flew backwards like a cannonball and hit the ground heavily. Bang 1. There was a loud noise like thunder, and a pit with a diameter of more than 5 meters appeared almost out of thin air, filled with cobweb-like tortoise cracks. Afterwards, a violent air wave was set off like a shock wave, mixed with misty dust, and swept out in all directions with a howling momentum. Advertisement. Especially in the castle corridors and rooms with narrow passages, everything and people were blown off the ground, and even the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna rolled several times in midair. Fortunately, Scathach escaped from the shadow of the Marquis of Menkenpass in time, turned into a graceful woman, and caught the Duke of Atava and Count Shanna successively in midair, keeping the two of them safe. BEFD. Roar. Suddenly, a huge Carnotaurus roared and rushed over, with cold eyes, like a large car, bit off the upper body of Skaha under the horrified eyes of Duke Atava and Count Shanna. But at the next moment, a large number of shadows seeped out from Viscount Somon's teeth, like flowing black water, quickly fused with Scathach's lower body, and restored its original appearance. Logia. Viscount Somon was a little dazed. He didn't expect this woman to ignore physical attacks. Immediately afterwards, Shaka strode forward, directly hitting the opponent's chin with an uppercut, with a bang. A circle of strong wind exploded, stirring up a burst of smoke and dust. Immediately, Viscount Suomen only felt a sharp pain in his jaw, his brain was buzzing, and his thoughts went blank. Even the huge body of Carnotaurus rose into the air, and fell heavily on the ground a few meters away, making the ground tremble. A shock. Are you kidding me? This scene was seen by the Marquis Menkenpass who had just arrived, and his eyeballs almost bulged out of shock. How could a shadow have such great power? Chant. Suddenly, there was a soft moan, like the trembling of a sword. The Marquis of Menkenpass looked back suddenly, and saw a black knife light attacking through the air. The sharpness almost made him tremble all over. One sword Ryakai Moro slash. Attack of the snake. Scandium. The scorpion-tailed furious snake's tail was like a flash of golden lightning, colliding with the black sharp knife light in an instant, and a loud sound of gold and iron colliding broke out in the void. Sparkling sparks shot out, and a circle of strong wind visible to the naked eye rippled in the air, expanding outward in a spherical shape. Immediately, a frenzied airflow suddenly erupted, like a gust of wind, and under the sound of rumbling thunder, the surrounding area was wrecked. Advertisement. Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. Cross gasped heavily with a pale complexion, his chest heaved up and down, and he stared closely at the Marquis of Menkenpass on the ground. Pooh. Suddenly, there was a soft sound. The clothes on Cross's chest were inexplicably torn, together with the skin and muscles inside. There were 4 wounds, as if scratched by some kind of beast's claws. A large stream of blood gushed out like spring water, and it turned red in a blink of an eye chest shirt. At the same time, the Marquis of Menkenpass let out a muffled grunt, and the sturdy snake scales and tough muscle tissue on his back were inexplicably split, forming a deep wound nearly 1 meter long, as if cut by an invisible sharp blade. It turned out that just now, the raging snake attack issued by Marquis Menkenpas hastily failed to block the II slash that Cross prepared to launch, and was slashed on the spot. However, the Marquis of Menkenpas was not to be outdone. Relying on his powerful, anger snake body, he used his 4-foot lion claw to hit Cross's chest with great pain. However, what Cross didn't expect was that the armament hockey covering his chest failed to resist the opponent's lion claws, and was directly torn into 4 wounds. This is what Earl Shanna said, ultimate destructive power. What a bloody lesson. Cross muttered to himself, and began to use the life return that he had just comprehended less than half a month ago. The musculature that controls the chest closes the wound. Boom. Suddenly, there was a gunshot, which was extremely clear in the noisy environment at the moment. A lead bullet flew from nowhere, penetrated Skaha's body, and sank into the chest of Duke Ottawa behind it. The Duke of Ottawa lowered his head in disbelief, looking at the terrifying blood hole in his chest. He felt that the power in his body was being withdrawn rapidly, causing his limbs to fall to his knees slowly and motionless. Wong, brother Wong. Count Shanna's pretty face was pale, and she looked almost dully at the Duke of Ottawa, who was suddenly shot beside him. Gia. Cough cough. Sen Leng's strange smile mixed with a painful cough came from behind a pillar in the corridor. Who is it? Cross gritted his teeth ferociously, his anger was ignited like a flame, and he growled, B*****************, get out. This shot is not bad. Cough cough cough. Your Excellency Marquis, I helped you solve a problem. Gia cough cough. Celian walked out from behind the load-bearing pillar with a grim expression, her footsteps were weak and slow, she held a flintlock pistol in her right hand, and her abdomen was wrapped in a large number of white bandages. His face was pale due to excessive blood loss, and blood seeped out of the bandage wrapping his abdomen, staining the white bandage red. Advertisement Chapter 86 The Regicide Spear. Advertisement. Randy Mashug. Cross stared coldly at the ladyboy who looked like a beautiful loli, his facial muscles were trembling with anger, and he almost shouted out the other person's name in a low growl. The moment he saw the Duke of Ottawa being shot, he knew he had miscalculated. He originally thought that with Skaha roaming the battlefield, even if he had more than one enemy, he could still protect the safety of the Duke of Ottawa. Who would have thought that the assassin of the Dark World who was hit by the Shadowhorn gun not only survived, but also gave him a big surprise, killing the Duke of Ottawa with only one shot of buckshot. Oh, is not dead yet. However, the Duke of Ottawa is just an ordinary person, not a monster with overwhelming physical fitness. He was hit in the chest by a lead bullet, and even a hole was punched in the sternum. In minutes, he would bleed to death. To be honest, Cross really didn't expect Celian to use Skathich's characteristic of ignoring physical attacks to carry out a perfect sniper assassination. If Celian shot at the Duke of Ottawa from other directions, the buckshot would definitely be intercepted by Skaha, so he did the opposite and found a direction where Skaha and the Duke of Ottawa coincided. The sneak attack on Skaha seems to be a snipe on Skaha, but it is actually a snipe on the Duke of Ottawa. Because Skathich's shadow body ignores physical attacks, he naturally doesn't care about the bullets fired at it, and there is no need to even block it. But it was this unnecessary obstruction that became a fatal loophole, allowing Celian to go straight into her soul and take away Duke Ottawa with one blow. Call me, Celian. Celian raised her chin provocatively, a grim smile appeared on her pale and delicate face. Killing a king first and then a candidate for the throne is also a milestone stage in his killer career. Brother Wong. Don't die, Brother Wong. I will never steal the red wine you collected again. Brother Wong. Don't close your eyes, don't close your eyes. At this moment, Earl Shanna knelt on the ground with a pretty face in horror, just hugging the seriously injured Duke of Ottawa at a loss, not knowing what to do at all. She has never encountered this kind of thing before, the previous calm state has long since turned into panic, and tears flow down unconsciously, smearing the delicate makeup on her face. The Duke of Ottawa looked pale, looked at his sister in front of him, reached out tremblingly to take down the golden crown on his head, and said weakly, "You are the second heir to the throne. Hand over you." He didn't finish his words, but handed the golden crown inlaid with sapphires to Shanna's hand, and then hung his arms weakly. Brother Wong. Woo. Earl Shanna looked at the loss of expression in Duke Ottawa's eyes, and couldn't help hugging the other's body tightly, crying out with a sad expression. The Marquis of Menkenpas didn't say a word, and looked at the body of his big brother in a daze, only Earl Sean's cry remained in his ears. Not far away, Viscount Somon returned to human form, raised his hand to wipe bloodline from the corner of his mouth, straightened the slightly messy black armor on his body expressionlessly, and bowed his head in silence. Are you guys sad? Celian said with a sarcastic expression, tisk, it's so hypocritical. Advertisement. Sad. The Marquis of Menkenpas looked at Celian blankly, and said in a flat tone, are you kidding me? I was just thinking about what to do with the other one. Now it seems that I should kill it, so as not to have long nights and dreams. Wow, what a cold-blooded guy. Cough. Sai Lian mocked with an exaggerated expression, and then couldn't help coughing up a mouthful of blood. My dear big brother ordered you to kill the king, but he didn't expect that he would die in your hands as well. This is really self-inflicted. Marquis Menkenpas said in an inexplicable tone. Then you wouldn't have thought. Celian proudly raised the flintlock pistol in her hand, and said, the gun that killed open black lens bracket Dorma 7 close black lens bracket is also my gun. A flintlock pistol with an ivory handle, embellished with a few obsidian polished into prismatic shapes, exquisite as a work of art, but it was the murder weapon that killed a king and an heir to the throne. Hearing this, the Marquis of Menkenpass had a look of coldness in his eyes, but it flashed again, and he said indifferently, "That's right, after this gun kills my sister, give it to me. After all, it also infected me. The regicide gun of the Doma clan's blood is really a rare collectible." Saren showed surprise on her face, and said in amazement, "You are really wicked. But it doesn't matter, although I also want to keep it, but since you said it, I will give it to you." After finishing speaking, he raised the regicide gun in his hand again and pointed it at Earl Shanna, who was more than 10 meters away. Splitting void. A roar full of extreme anger sounded. A dazzling knife light suddenly bloomed, containing the meaning of extremely terrifying sharpness, and it turned into an unrivaled huge slash and fell. "Oh, damn." Celine's eyes widened, and a horrified expression appeared on her delicate face. Bang. The next moment, the ground suddenly split, and it was as fragile as tofu under the terrifying huge slash, almost splitting the entire castle in two. In an instant, this huge cyan slash flew out of the peak of Gengoma Holy Mountain, and disappeared into the sky like a shooting star. But the strong shaking didn't stop, and the rising dust gradually spread. "Walk." Cross let out a low cry, and rushed to Earl Shanna like a cheetah, picked him up, and then ran towards the other side. Scathach turned into a shadow again, and followed closely behind Cross. Asking for flowers. The dazzling light of the knife disappeared, and the Marquis of Menkenpass regained his sight. Looking at a huge crack stretching hundreds of meters in front of him and the body of the Duke of Atava, he subconsciously asked, "Where is the person?" Quote exclamation mark quote. Viscount Somon put down the palm covering his eyes, and replied uncertainly. Advertisement. The Marquis Menkenpass eyes were a bit colder. After looking around, he asked hesitantly, "Where's Celine?" Dead. Viscount Somon looked down at his feet. Half of his body was bloody and bloody, only a white and slender arm and a delicate flintlock pistol in his hand could prove his identity. Useless trash. Follow me. The Marquis of Menkenpass cursed rather angrily, and followed the scent left by Cross. On the other side, Cross carried Count Shanna on his shoulders and quickly shuttled through the castle. 0. It's just that the soldiers of the guards have already controlled the main roads in the castle. No matter where Cross passes through, he will meet them. Of course, it's not the soldiers that matter, but that Cross doesn't know the way at all. The inside of the castle is intricate, with corridors and rooms everywhere. He killed several groups of enemy soldiers in a row and ran through several corridors, but failed to find the right way. But after the Duke of Atava died, Count Shanna clenched the golden crown in his hand with a dull expression, and even though Cross repeatedly asked about the road, he didn't say a word. "The intruder is here. Your Excellency the Marquis has an order to shoot, regardless of life or death. Come with me, catch that sailor." The castle was full of shouts from guard soldiers and constant gunshots of bang bang. Damn it. Cross ran to an open-air corridor, looked up at the moonlit night sky, gritted his teeth, and decided to block it and use moonwalk to escape from the sky. However, this approach is very risky, because there is no foothold in the air, just relying on moonwalk to dodge. In fact, it is not flexible on the ground, especially once they are shot by random guns. Both of them will have a big impact gun chance. The point is that Cross won't die after a few shots, but once Earl Shanna gets shot, I'm afraid she will go to see her father and big brother. Gee. Roar. Roar. Cuckoo cuckoo. Suddenly, a lot of dark clouds flew in the sky, almost covering the moonlight in the sky, accompanied by various cries of birds and eagles, or it was not really dark clouds, but made up of countless birds and monsters, dark clouds. Seeing this scene, Cross showed joy and said to himself, "Reinforcements, finally came too." Advertisement Chapter 87 The Activated Creature That Fell from the Sky. Advertisement. What is that? What are you talking about? You saw that sailor. On the top of a towering arrow tower on the outer wall of the castle, one soldier stared blankly at the distant sky, while the other casually turned around, looked in the direction pointed by his companion, and also froze on the spot. A large black, dark cloud was formed, but countless birds came out, probably nearly 1,000 densely packed. In addition to common eagles, giant birds, vultures and other flying birds, there are actually many legendary monsters mixed in among them, such as Pegasus, Griffin, Gargoyle, and Wyvern, all of which should not exist in reality creature. Bang! A huge griffin slammed into the arrow tower like a meteorite. The brown copper body seemed indestructible. Under the moonlight, it shone with a metallic luster. It smashed a big hole in the top of the arrow tower, splashing a lot pieces of rubble fell to the bottom. Oh, damn it! Quickly kill the monster. 973. The two soldiers got up from the ground in shock, shouting again and again, while hurriedly picking up their weapons, but their tone revealed panic. Boom! There was a shot. One of the soldiers raised a flintlock gun and shot at the huge griffin in front of him. The lead bullet that came out of the gun hit the opponent's forehead, but was bounced off with a ding, leaving only a faint spot on it. Dense. Roar. Although the attack was not painful, it angered the griffin, making it roar and sweep out with a single large metal wing over 2 meters long, almost filling the narrow space, and the fierce wind blowing off the soldier's face. His muscles are blowing like ripples on the surface of water. With a dull and loud noise, the entire solid arrow tower built of rocks was shaken. Inside the narrow arrow tower, 2 guard soldiers were smashed by the large pure copper wings of the griffin on the spot, their bones and tendons were broken, and their bodies were framed on the cracked wall. At this moment, an overwhelming number of activated creatures attacked from the sky, wantonly attacking the soldiers in the kingdom's castle. Any human with a weapon is their target, as if venting the wrath of Cross. Monster. Monster. Advertisement. Hurry up and shoot. Ah. Bring a bazooka. Ordinary firearms are useless. Damn it, where did these ghost things come from? B asterisk 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 D. Don't run around. Gather them all and drive them out of the castle. For a moment, the originally restless palace and castle fell into chaos. All kinds of horrified screams came and went, and the bang 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 gunshots were as intense as fried beans, which were also mixed with the loud noise of explosions and the crackling of flames. It's like the flames of war spread to the top. The sudden changes and the hard-to-kill activated creatures have become everyone's nightmare. And in an open-air corridor in the palace castle, a dozen soldiers with guns had just blocked Cross's way when they were knocked into the crowd by several gargoyles from the sky, disrupting the formation. Gargoyles are actually an architectural feature with a history of thousands of years. It was originally used to filter the rainwater left by the edge of the building, and of course there is another more mysterious purpose to ward off demons. Its image is also similar to that of a devil, with a ferocious face with horns on its forehead, strong muscles like a rock, hands and feet with beast-like claws, and a pair of bat-like wings behind it. Although it is in a squatting posture, it still has a height of about 8 meters. If he stood up, he would definitely exceed the height of 2.2 meters. Moreover, these gargoyles are all carved out of a large block of granite, so strong that ordinary firearms have no way of causing effective damage to them, especially after being given life by Cross. Unless they are hit with a flintlock, it's impossible to knock it out of the air or kill it out of the air, or shoot it in the head with a couple of flintlock guns at close range. It is conceivable that these few gargoyles alone can easily defeat a small army of dozens of ordinary people. In a blink of an eye, all the enemies around Cross were wiped out by the activated creatures that fell from the sky, and there were a large number of activated creatures around him. A tall and majestic white Pegasus fell slowly. Its body was carved from some kind of white stone, with exquisite carving techniques. Even the hair was carved out. It looked like a real Pegasus. Cross hugged Earl Shanna on Pegasus's back, and saw that the other party's heart was ashamed. He couldn't help frowning, and said in a deep voice, "Miss Shanna, if you don't want to take revenge, don't want to take back the throne, or want to if you want to die, I can put you down right now. However, if you don't want this country to fall into the hands of pirates, and if you don't want the power of the country to be controlled by your enemies, then put the crown in your hand on your head." Speaking of this, Cross looked at the golden crown in the opponent's hand and said seriously, "Our marine will obey the queen's order and help the Bion kingdom defeat the Roberts Legion, and clean up those rebels who usurped the throne, so as to make up for the past mistake." Hearing Cross's words, Earl Shanna's expression moved slightly, and a look of radiance appeared because of the originally dull beauty. Revenge. Queen. That's right, the 8th king of Bion kingdom, Queen Doma Shanna. Advertisement. Cross looked at Earl Shanna with a serious expression, and said something surprising. Queen Doma Shanna. Earl Shanna muttered to himself, staring blankly at the blood-stained golden crown in his hand. However, in the next second, the tail of the angry snake like a steel whip was thrown out like a phantom, smashing the gargoyle behind it to pieces, bursting into a pile of broken stones and smoke and dust on the ground. B asterisk 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 D sailor. BCH. Don't even try to run away. Immediately after, Cross also leapt and sat on the back of a low-flying copper griffin. BCH, you don't deserve that crown. Immediately, she reached out and took off the white wreath-shaped ring headdress on her head and threw it on the ground, and put the golden crown in her hand on her head. A gargoyle descended from the sky, quietly trying to attack Marquis Kempis from behind. The Marquis of Menkenpass turned his head and looked around, only to find that he was surrounded by a large number of monsters. In an instant, he was overwhelmed by the living creatures coming in like a tide. Seeing his younger brother, Earl Shanna didn't panic in the slightest, but just glanced at him blankly, and then shifted his gaze to Cross. "That's right, I want to avenge Brother Wong." Cross nodded in understanding, and said in a deep voice, "There are no 1.2 people who can stop us from leaving. Sit still, Her Majesty Queen Shanna." The Marquis of Menkenpass was furious. A smear of blood appeared in the golden vertical shaft, and he jumped up immediately, running fast in the air as if stepping on an invisible ladder, chasing the two people in the sky. However, his actions seemed to poke a hornet's nest, and the activated creatures hovering in midair immediately changed direction and swarmed towards him, almost forming a dark cloud. Nani. Suddenly, a golden angry snake like a gold casting appeared at the end of the corridor. Its golden pupils were full of anger, and it stared at Earl Shanna closely. In the next second, Earl Shanna's expression became resolute, and after taking a deep breath, it seemed that her energy and spirit had returned. The originally pale and pretty face was a little more bloody, and the big eyes of Kazilan with green pupils were full of blood, fortitude and hatred. Bang 1. The Pegasus carved by Shiraishi flapped its wings, and a gust of wind spread, and it flew to the sky with Earl Shanna on its back. Advertisement Chapter 88 The Dilemma of the Marines. Advertisement. Attack of the Snake. Angry Snake Thunderstorm. The Hollow Ring. Big Dragon. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Hundreds of activated creatures surrounded from all directions, madly attacking Doma Menkenpas in the middle. The strong roar echoed continuously in the night sky, and a large number of broken stones fell from the sky like rain. The castle below was smashed into a mess. However, Menkenpass's sharp claws are extremely sharp, and the force on his tail is also very strong. Whether it is an activated stone statue or a harder metal sculpture, they are as fragile as tofu and can be easily torn apart like paper, into pieces. In just 1 minute, Hundreds of activated creatures died at the hands of Marquis Menkenpass, turning into rubble and metal fragments all over the ground, but it was difficult to hinder his progress. Suddenly, Marquis Menkenpass' eyes lit up, and he found that he had killed through the encirclement of these monsters, and only a few gargoyles were still wandering around. It's just that in the distance, a large, dark cloud guards Cross and Shanna, far away from the sky above the palace and castle, making it impossible to catch up. Damn it, The Marquis of Menkenpass, incarnated as Angry Snake, stood in the air, watching the 14 feet dark cloud disappearing into the night, roaring hysterically with anger. The roar seemed to startle the birds, causing the surrounding gargoyles to leave quickly, without further delaying each other. And thousands of meters away, Cross riding on the griffin seemed to hear someone's angry roar, and couldn't help but look back, looking at the smaller and smaller face of the main Goma. I will be back. He touched the 4 scars on his chest that were barely bleeding anymore, his eyes were a little clouded, and he whispered softly. Without the burden of Doma Shanna, he would have been able to fight head-on with the group of nobles with nearly 1,000 activated creatures. It's just that, as a member of Marine, he naturally puts Marine's interests first and protects Doma Shanna well enough to allow Marine to stand up in name and not be rejected by the people of Bion Kingdom, plus the Royalist Pie still has a lot of power. If it can form an alliance with Marine, then the chances of winning against the Roberts army will be greatly improved. Colonel Cross, can you send this letter to my king? Advertisement. At this time, Shanna, who was riding Shiraishi Pegasus, waved a bloody cloth and yelled at Cross. Cross knew that the bloody piece of cloth was actually a blood book, which contained everything that happened in the palace and castle tonight. Among them are the chief of the palace guards, Somon, and crazy elf, Selen, who betrayed the royalist faction and colluded with the aristocratic faction to launch a coup, leading to the death of Doma Atawa. There is also the truth about the aristocratic faction's collusion with the pirates, and Shanna's decision to form an alliance with Marine. Give it to me. Cross nodded, and let a 2-meter-tall stone harpy fly over, took the blood book from Shanna's hand, and flew towards Doma City without looking back. At the same time, he also sent most of the living creatures around him back to Doma City, firstly to protect the blood book, and secondly to help the royalist side, lest they be taken over by the noble faction after being suddenly attacked by the Roberts Legion. The guards stabbed back, so that the whole army collapsed. Thank you. San Nami's eyes flickered, with tears streaming down her face, and thanked Cross very gratefully. At the same time, more than 10,000 Marine officers and soldiers lined up like a long queue, stretching for several kilometers, walking with difficulty in the mountains and jungles of the Bion Kingdom. They underestimated the complex terrain of the Bion Kingdom, thinking that they would be able to respond to any movement of the Roberts Legion in a timely manner, with the Roberts Legion sandwiched in the distance of 30 kilometers from Doma City. Who would have thought that the hinterland of the Kingdom of Bion has overlapping mountains and wading through mountains and rivers at every turn? It seems that the distance on the map is only 30 kilometers, but the actual walking distance is doubled. The reason why the Roberts Legion can walk freely in the Bion Kingdom is because there are guides sent by the nobles as guides, and they can walk on spacious mountain paths or short trails, but Marine does not have this treatment. Even if it weren't for Cross's activated army to help pull the artillery and carry supplies, Marine's marching speed would have been much slower. Bang! A big tree with luxuriant branches was pushed down and fell heavily on the ground. Vice Admiral had an irritable expression, raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his forehead, and cursed angrily, "Damn it, what the hell is this place?" As a giant, walking among such complex mountains and mountains-made Rackwall, who had already adapted to the vast ocean, unable to hold back. Ha 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 ha, this is also the first time for this old man to fight in such an environment, what a novel experience. Prody Vice Admiral grinned, stretched out his hand and patted Lackville's calf. Prody Vice Admiral, this march is too slow, I'm afraid we may not be able to reach Doma City by tomorrow morning. Marsal Rear Admiral ran over in a hurry and complained. Gobert Rear Admiral, Sicilian Rear Admiral, and Becca's Rear Admiral came with Marsal. They also thought that such a march would be too time-consuming, and it might delay the fighter plane. Advertisement. Lost the best time to rescue Doma City. The news of the aristocratic faction's coup d'état and the Roberts Legion's intrusion into Doma City has already been reported by Cross to the Marine Conquest Fleet, and the Marine intelligence personnel in Doma City and world government agents also have news to corroborate this fact. Although everyone present belonged to different Marine factions and had different philosophies, their hearts for justice have not changed, and they will not delay their opportunities on the battlefield. Especially the Doves and Hawks regard this mission as a future promotion capital, and even the Hawks are planning to push Sakazuki to the position of Admiral, so they are even more anxious to reach Doma City and Roberts. The Legion is having a great battle. No matter how anxious you are, it's useless, because we are not familiar with the terrain, so we can only advance step by step according to the map. Speaking of this, Prody Vice Admiral paused, and then continued. Not to mention the activation of the Legion. The flying troops are dispatched before us. This has probably already rushed to the city of Doma to participate in the battle. It should be able to help the army of the Bion Kingdom to resist for a while. Are you kidding me? Becca's Rear Admiral said dissatisfiedly. Could it be that there are so many of us, and we can only rely on one brat? Don't underestimate Colonel Cross, he is still very reliable. Gobert Rear Admiral said in a grievance. I didn't underestimate that little brat. Becca's Rear Admiral said calmly, with his expression unchanged. It's just him alone, with at most 1,000 activated creatures. If you want to fight against the Roberts Legion with this kind of combat power, it's no different. Use the arm of the mantis as a cart. That's right, although I also recognize Cross 887's strength, I'm even more afraid of his youthful vigor, thinking that killing Moria, who is alone, will be able to fight against the Roberts Legion, which is outnumbered. Rear Admiral of Sicily said worriedly. Prodi Vice Admiral scratched his head with a distressed expression, obviously agreeing with the words of these rear admirals. As the saying goes, if you are not young and energetic, you can still be called a young man. Especially those fledgling young pirates in the sea, some of them didn't run to challenge the overlord of the New World right away, trying to become famous overnight. But in the end, most of them either died or surrendered to those pirate overlords. Occasionally, a few guys with good luck and strength escaped by chance, but they were all beaten without energy. You can see Gecko Moria, Shah Lokdar and others. And Cross is equivalent to a supernova in Marine. As for the Roberts Legion, although it is not the overlord of pirates, it is also a powerful pirate group that can challenge the position of overlord. With Cross alone, it is impossible to defeat the entire Roberts army, and even dying under the siege of those pirates is a very high possibility. Lakbar Vice Admiral, Prodi Vice Admiral, is Sakazuki Vice Admiral here? Just as Prodi Vice Admiral and the others were still marching slowly and thinking hard, a familiar voice suddenly came from the sky. Cross. That brat. Everyone looked up in amazement, and saw Cross riding a copper griffin, and a woman riding a Pegasus beside him, surrounded by hundreds of activated creatures, appearing above them. Advertisement Chapter 89 Deploying Troops and Generals. Advertisement. Colonel Cross's commitment represents Marine's commitment. When Sakazuki saw Cross and Doma Shanna who returned from Doma City, especially knowing that the Duke of Ottawa was dead, and that Count Shanna wanted to inherit the throne, he agreed to the idea of an alliance with Marine, so he resolutely agreed to cross to Shanna. Na's promise. Immediately afterwards, in front of Earl Shanna, he contacted Naval Headquarters with a phone bug, and asked the Marine Marshal Kong Kong who was far away in Marineford to admit it himself. With the support of Naval Headquarters, Earl Shanna is undoubtedly given a reassurance, completely relieved. Not that Shanna didn't believe in Cross promises. On the contrary, Shanna trusts Cross incomparably, even more than the entire Marine, and all the royalist members in Doma City, even her uncle, Doma Laboon Isher, is under Cross. For the king, the 2 credits of supporting and rescuing him are the most important credits among many credits. As Shanna, who is about to be the Dorma 8, naturally trusts Cross, she even wants to dig Marine. In the corner, recruit Cross to his subordinates, or, a minister under the skirt, become another prince. But now, after all, Cross is just a small Marine colonel, not qualified to interfere with Naval Headquarters resolutions, let alone represent the entire Marine. If it is said that Cross's previous promise only made Shanna feel hopeful, then Sakazuki's promise has a high degree of credibility, and the empty promise in the end is what completely reassures Shanna. As the Marshal of Marine, Empty Body is higher than the kings of most countries in the world in terms of status, strength and force. Even if the 5 elders of the world government want to oppose the decision made by Marshal Marine, need to think twice unless it involves celestial dragons, historical texts, etc. a series of major things. Thank you, Lord Sakazuki. Shanna thanked him politely. You're welcome, everything is for justice. Advertisement. Sakazuki asked earnestly with an unsmiling expression. However, Marine is not familiar with the geographical terrain of Bion Kingdom, so the march is difficult, like a turtle's speed. I wonder if Ms. Shanna has any solution. Damn it, forgot about it. Cross woke up with a start. During the day, the large Marine troops set off from Yishantian Port, entered the hinterland of Chiolo Island, and stepped into the mountains. They had already experienced troubles initially, but they did not expect the situation to be urgent. Before Marine, after resting and preparing for marching and fighting in the mountains, it is necessary to cross the main 10 kilometers of mountains again at night. I'm afraid that by the time the Marine army arrived at Doma City, the Roberts Legion had joined forces with the private army and guards belonging to the aristocratic faction to completely wipe out the royalist faction. Perhaps my animated legion can take the lead and clear the way for the army to advance. Cross made a suggestion. It's also a way. However, those activated creatures are responsible for dragging the artillery and transporting supplies. If they are allowed to take the lead and let the sailors carry the artillery by themselves, the marching speed will not increase much. Sakazuki replied hesitantly. At this time, Shanna thought for 2 seconds, and said seriously, I know a smooth path can lead directly to Doma City, which belongs to the business road controlled by my Doma clan. Although it is a small road, the road is smooth and there are monthly people. Maintenance, even the artillery of your army can pass through. Great. If he remembers correctly, ghost spiders are also good at this. Moreover, with the tens of thousands of Royal Army soldiers led by Prince Laboon Ishul and the Hebrides Admiral Army, even if they couldn't repel Robert's army, delaying the arrival of the main Marine force would be enough to faint. Life returned, with hair as suture. Sakazuki looked at Cross, short silver hair with a weird expression and a little speechless. Since this is the case, I still request that I lead the activated army to take the lead. At least they can move quickly, and they can quickly support Prince Laboon Ishul and Hebrides Admiral's army, and buy time for the arrival of our Marine main force. Having said that, Cross looking at Sakazuki, I said in a deep voice, most of the activated creatures that I will fly stay in Doma City. Supporting the army of the Bion Kingdom from the air, coupled with the main force of the activated army, can delay for a long time. Advertisement. Listening to Cross's words, Shanna looked at the nose and did not express any opinions, but Sakazuki thought about what Cross said seriously. Good offer, but, speaking of this, he paused, and said seriously, do you have any good recommendations? Which Vice Admiral would be more suitable? Since the activated Legion is dispatched, I will naturally not refuse to go, but I can let Prodi Vice Admiral command, and call some generals to accompany him to strengthen the combat power of the activated Legion. Cross replied. It's just a paw, it's not a problem. Cross shook his head and said with a smile. I am a Grandmaster in the 6th form, I have learned the return of life, and the wound has already closed, so the bleeding is not much, not to mention I use my hair as a thread, the wound has been sutured. 2 Vice Admirals, 4 Rear Admirals, 100 school officers at all levels, plus thousands of powerful and fearless activated creatures, this power cannot be underestimated even by the Roberts Legion. In this way, our Marine main force can rush to the vicinity of Doma City, and there is still time to rest for a while before attacking. In this way, it is better than more than 10,000 people trekking for hours, and participating in more intense battles when they are exhausted. The casualties after the battle may be much smaller. He didn't expect that Nuauchin's Cross had mastered the esoteric art of life return at such a young age, and could even manipulate and grow hair freely. Since this is the case, I will let Prodi Vice Admiral and Sakhus Vice Admiral accompany the Activation Legion in action, as well as 4 Rear Admirals including Dao Boyan, Ghost Spider, Marsal and Bekas, and 100 each Senior Colonel. Afterwards, Sakazuki did not refuse Cross's offer, and dispatched a lot of people to strengthen the combat power of the activated army. Sakazuki nodded in agreement, but his eyes fell on the wound on Cross's chest, and he said slightly worried, is your injury still sustainable? Do you want the military doctor to treat you carefully? If the more than 10,000 Marine soldiers arrived at Doma City, they could rest for a while, recover their strength, and then launch an attack, it would definitely be more difficult than a group of exhausted soldiers. Immediately, Sakazuki made a decision in his heart, and said directly, just do what you say, and call all the activated creatures, and rush to Doma City as quickly as possible. Hearing the sudden good news, Sakazuki squeezed a smile on his face, and his eyes on Shanna eased a lot. Advertisement Chapter 90 Front and Rear Pincers and Front and Rear Pincers. Advertisement. Go, 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 ho ho 1. AOWWH. The classical knights lined up in a neat team like a growing dragon, walking on the mountain path about 2 meters wide, and there were galloping ligers, tigers and beasts in front and behind, as well as various legendary creatures such as stone giants, centaurs, werewolves, etc. This is a mighty army composed of stone statues and various metal sculptures. Each soldier has a body that is heavier than ordinary people, and they walk with great momentum. Deep footprints or paw prints can still be made on the mountain roads where fallen leaves are piled up. Not only that, but the movement speed of this army is far faster than that of ordinary troops. Even though it travels through the mountains with complex terrain, it still does not slow down, and quickly moves towards the royal city, Doma City, of the Kingdom of Bayon. It's not bad to ride this thing. Prodi Vice Admiral rode on a 4-meter-long copper lion, patted the lion's buttocks and smiled. It's too hard, and it's uncomfortable to sit on. It's good for some to sit, Mr. Prodi, others can only walk. Hus Vice Admiral sat on a 2-story stone mammoth, carrying a broad-bladed broadsword, looking down at the seniors in front of him. Although that brat's heart is soft like a woman's, but his ability is really good. Becca's Rear Admiral rode upside down on the body of a stone centaur archer, boasting a lot but not boasting. If I were Cross, I would definitely throw you down and let you run to Doma City by yourself. Rear Admiral sat on the back of a 5-meter-long stony Komodo dragon, lazily lifting it. At the beginning, he glanced at Becca's behind him with disdain. Others are not as narrow-minded as you are. Becca snorted softly, angrily yelling at Marsal. Okay, stop arguing. Doberman Rear Admiral, who fell behind the two of them, rode a tall metal horse, and scolded in a deep voice. If you have this skill, why don't you rest for a while, and then kill a few more pirates? But Rear Admiral, the ghost spider at the back, bowed his head without saying a word, his long hair formed several arms, holding a white cloth and knife oil respectively, and wiping several long knives. Interestingly, what he was sitting on was a shiny black octopus spider as big as a millstone, and the spider legs on both sides stretched out to the grass outside the road. Hearing Doberman's scolding, Marsal and Becca's looked at each other, turned their heads in displeasure, but did not continue to quarrel. Among the current Rear Admirals, apart from some older Rear Admirals, the young Doberman is one of the most prestigious people. Personal strength, as well as army command, are very powerful, and many people are convinced. Some at war, the first to scold the red-haired Shanks. When Zephyr died, the only one who shed tears. Advertisement. Cross is flying in the air on a copper griffin, beside him is Shanna riding a Shiraishi Pegasus, and Gion is riding a giant stone bird. The large army scouts the road and alerts the enemy. Shanna held Shiraishi's Pegasus by the neck, looked at Hina with some hostility, and then said to Cross, cross this mountain, and the city of Doma is in front of you. I've already seen the castle on the top of Gangoma Holy Mountain. Cross nodded, looking ahead with a serious expression, he could faintly hear the sound of thunder like artillery fire. Call. Gion also looked at Shanna, and said with a bright smile, thanks for your hard work, Ms. Shanna, we already know the next journey, Ms. Shanna will return first. The battle will start later. If she hurts the future queen, Hina will be blamed by Sakazuki Vice Admiral. Shanna's pretty face changed slightly, she looked at Cross nervously, and quickly said, I won't enter the battlefield, I just watch the battle from the sky, to see if my Uncle Wong is safe and sound. In that case, Gion, you stay and protect Earl Shanna. Cross laughed. Colonel Cross, are you teaching me how to do things? Guillaume gave Cross an annoyed look, emphasizing the word, Colonel, in an unhappy tone. It's just a suggestion, Guillaume Commodore, after all, Earl Shanna is not a warrior. Cross raised his eyebrows, and said seriously, okay, then I will keep all these flying living creatures to protect Earl Shanna. Quote. Okay. Guillaume nodded in agreement. Seeing the familiar conversation between Guillaume and Cross, Shanna couldn't help gritting her teeth secretly, feeling a bit suffocated in her heart, and had a premonition that her subsequent poaching would probably fail. I'm so mad. Soon, after less than an hour, the activated army, which was the forward of the Marine, crossed the mountain roads of more than 20 kilometers and finally arrived at the city of Doma. At this moment, the battle in the city has fallen into a fierce stage. More than 20,000 soldiers of the Royal Army led by Prince Laboon Ishul and the Hebruz Admiral Army were caught in the position of the Gangoma St. Yamanaka division, and were attacked by the Roberts Army and the Noble faction. Attack from both sides. Fortunately, Shanna's blood letter gave the Royalists great confidence and let the Kingdom Army know that there would be strong support, so they gritted their teeth and refused to retreat. Ho! Advertisement. But just as the Royal Army's situation became more and more difficult and gradually unable to support it, the activated army as the forward of the Marine was like an arrow off the string, and plunged into the rear of the Roberts Army. The two sides did not have any dialogue, and they started working directly, and a fierce battle broke out under the city of Doma. It's just a pile of rocks and chunks of metal, and the artillery smashes them. But in this world, pirates are synonymous with cruelty, violence, despicability and power. The army of an ordinary country is no match for pirates at all. Many small countries can only silently endure the plunder of pirates, and then either ask Marine for help or die. It is not too much to say that the strongest pirate is the Emperor of the Sea, such as 4 emperors later. Go, 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 Au! After several fierce offensive and defensive battles, the Royal Army suffered heavy casualties, but made no progress. You must know that in other worlds, although pirates are ferocious and tyrannical, they are also very annoying when fighting, but their real combat effectiveness cannot be compared with the regular army of any country, let alone face-to-face combat. The private army of the nobles and the palace guards above the head are relatively small, but they can switch from offensive to defensive in time. In addition, the Royal Army is on the offensive and lacks heavy weapons such as artillery. It is disadvantageous to attack repeatedly. Corpses crumbled. However, the resolute resistance of the Royal Army caused the pirates of the Roberts Legion to suffer heavy casualties. In anger, they directly set up cannons and bombarded the residential area recklessly. Amidst the thunderous cannons, the flames of war burned almost all over the city of Doma, and the thick black smoke shot straight into the sky. Various gunshots, sword clashes, terrified shouts, and shouts of all-out efforts to kill were intertwined and played together. A symphony unique to war and blood. Hold on, don't mess up. But the generals of the Kingdom Army were not stupid, so they tried to change this unfavorable situation, preparing to defend one side and attack the other. The pirates of the Roberts Legion below were even more powerful, and the Royal Army who fought head-on was defeated one after another, not only leaving countless corpses, even lost a lot of defensive positions. Damn, what kind of monsters are these? Therefore, it is not surprising that the Roberts Legion is a well-known pirate group in the New World, and the regular army of the Bion Kingdom is not an opponent, but it is still a very normal thing. But they miscalculated. Advertisement Chapter 91 The Iron Knight, Fabian Lunt. Advertisement. As the commander-in-chief of the former Ashby Kingdom, the invincible Sword of Ashby, Roberts Bartholomew is naturally a grandmaster, and he will not be unprepared for Marines' sneak attack from behind. Therefore, the Roberts Corps has always kept an elite reserve force, which is playing a role at this moment. Although Doma City has 3 gates, there is only one main gate facing the first-line port. Moreover, this place is between the high mountains, and it is difficult for the army to move. It is very troublesome and time-consuming to go around the city gates in the other 2 directions, so Roberts Bartholomew prepared more than 3,000 pirates, deployed near the main city gate. However, the strength of the activated legion far exceeded Roberts Bartholomew's expectations. The actions of the activated legion did not have any cover, and they rushed straight towards the city of Doma. The actions of thousands of activated creatures caused a lot of commotion, making Roberts's army select the traces of the activated legion. Now that the enemy has been discovered, it is natural to prepare for the battle early. As a result, thousands of activated creatures made of stone and metal charged like a storm, facing the sky full of bullets, and defeated the 2,000 pirates deployed in the camp outside the city with just one wave of attack. Monster! Monster! Run away! We can't win! They're going to die! They're going to die! Ah! Cannons and guns discarded at will, corpses trampled into flesh or horribly dead, pirates fleeing all over the mountains. The pirates who have already occupied the city wall look at their defeated companions outside the city. Everyone was dumbfounded, and could hardly believe what they saw. Everyone shoot for cover, get them all back into town. An admiral wearing an antler iron helmet, a black iron mask covering his face, a black-gray armor, 2 meters tall, and a samurai sword across his waist appeared on the tower, looking coldly at the monsters outside the city, and said in a deep voice ordered. Obey. Bang 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 bang. Boom boom boom, boom boom. Immediately, there was loud gunfire, dazzling flames flickered non-stop, and countless lead bullets and shells formed a large net like a storm, covering the most densely activated living creatures. For a while, stone chips flew randomly, accompanied by a loud bang like a bell, and many living creatures were smashed into pieces or knocked down on the ground. Advertisement. Hey, You are the Iron Knight Fabian Lunt, one of the 3 admiral armies of the Roberts Legion, with a bounty of 325 million Baileys. Suddenly, a voice came from the top of his head, causing Lent to look up, and found that it was a young sailor riding a legendary griffin hovering above his head, and there was another one riding a giant stone bird. Girl follows around. Sailor, you are the brat that Lilper and Morados were talking about. Lunt stared at the young sailor above his head, and unexpectedly felt a vague crisis, which made him squint his eyes and said guessingly. Oh, what did that stupid pig and snake say about me? Cross bent down and looked curiously at Lunt below. Your soldiers are surprisingly powerful. Lunt didn't answer Cross, but said to himself, the monsters flying in the sky and the monsters running on the ground in the city should be the same. Morados didn't lie. Kanglang. In the next second, Lent suddenly drew his knife out of its sheath, and the bright cold light almost dispelled the surrounding darkness, and an extremely sharp slash shot up into the sky, wrapped in a fierce wind, and went straight to the sky. The Cross cut away. Cross was taken aback, he didn't expect the other party to attack suddenly. Showgirl. At the same time, Guillaume Dang, who has been holding a knife in his hand since he entered the battlefield, and has been on alert all the time, even though he swung his knife and slashed out a strangely shaped slash wave, it was like a graceful woman, sharply rubbing against the air. The voice also seemed to be a bit better. Clang. The 2 slashes collided in midair, and they made a sound like gold and iron colliding, and then shattered each other into dots of stars, and a strong wind visible to the naked eye spread out in a circular shape, blowing the coats on Cross and Guillaume hunting sound. You guys actually engage in a sneak attack, and even sneak attack on me, a 17-year-old kid, you're too disrespectful of martial arts. Cross angrily condemned loudly. Guillaume on the side heard Cross, and couldn't help but be a little bit dumbfounded. 17-year-old kid, you are too sloppy a child, with countless hands stained with blood, killing countless pirates with their heads rolling, you are too childish. What's more, what kind of martial arts are you talking about to a pirate who does all kinds of evil? It's interesting. There are a lot of powerful young people in Marine. Lent ignored the funny Cross, and his eyes fell directly on Guillaume. Unexpectedly, this young female sailor also possesses good swordsmanship. Advertisement. Asking for flowers. Call out. Bang 1. Suddenly, a shell fell on the city wall, and there was a deafening explosion. The scorching flames soaring into the sky formed an inverted bowl-shaped fireball, which blasted a big gap in the thick and solid city wall, and the air wave generated by the explosion was like a strong wind, blowing away more than a dozen people on the spot. Pirates. Ha 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 ha. Prody appeared below the city with a single-armed bazooka on his shoulders, and laughed loudly. I can't let you brats steal the limelight, or I'll be laughed at by that Garp guy for a long time. Go away. Huss Vice Admiral was like a brown bear roaring like thunder, blocking the gate of the city with a 2-meter-long broad-bladed sword, slashing all the pirates around him in half. 0. Vice Admiral at Naval Headquarters. What a troublesome guy. Lent stared quietly at the Huss Vice Admiral below, and whispered softly, it seems that I will try my best to block some guys, otherwise Captain Roberts will be very troublesome. Clang. On a ruined street, the loud noise produced by the collision of gold and iron erupted, stirring up violent waves like a gust of wind, sweeping in all directions. Why bother to hold on? Holding the famous gun, Georg Bartholomew persuaded Hebrus in front of him. As long as you are willing to serve me, when I take this country, I can still hand over the domestic army to you to command. Surrounded by hundreds of pirates, all of them had ferocious expressions and fanaticism in their eyes, like wolves, completely encircling Hebrus. Hoo-ha, hoo-ha. Hebrus was panting heavily. The black armor on his body was severely damaged, but his eyes were full of determination. He held the long sword in his hand tightly unmoved, and assumed the bull position, starting posture in swordsmanship. I really don't listen to what you say. It's a pity that I don't have time to drag on any longer, so I can only kill you here. Bartholomew sighed and looked at Hebrus. His eyes became as cold as a knife. In the next second, Bartholomew rushed out like a tiger descending the mountain, and rushed to Hebrus in an instant, and the Georg in his hand even burst into dazzling light. The Thorn of the Thorn. The Door. Advertisement Chapter 92. Advertisement. Hebrus is a middle-aged man with a height of more than 3 meters. He has an average appearance, only the protruding cheekbones make him look more distinctive. He wears black Spartan-style full-body armor with silver patterns all the year round, and holds the cross-shaped knight longsword around Mi San as the strongest swordsman in the Kingdom of Bion. Of course, as one of the only 3 marquises in the kingdom, as the Admiral Army commanding the army of the Kingdom of Bion, his status is very honorable in the entire Kingdom of Bion, even the prince, princess and first consul you won't be presumptuous when you see him. But strictly speaking, Hebrus does not completely belong to the royalist faction, because he is only loyal to the king, and only maintains his friendship with the first heir. Moreover, almost the upper echelons of the Bion Kingdom know that Hebrus hates Marines, pirates, and even all outsiders, because he is a loyal supporter of the idea of closing the country. Therefore, the aristocratic faction where the Marquis of Menkenpass belonged was only a tentative solicitation, and after the failure, Hebrus was never listed as an enemy. However, Hebrus feels very depressed now. He really did not expect the development of the domestic situation to be so unpredictable. A blood letter from Earl Shanna, and the envoys from the 133 aristocratic faction later made him understand everything that happened tonight. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that His Majesty King Doma VII was assassinated by the Duke of Ottawa was like a shocking thunderstorm. It really made the Admiral Army and Prince Laboon Ishor, who commanded the Royal Army, dizzy. I didn't come back to my senses for a long time. The former is only loyal to the king and the country, and the latter is the king's own younger brother. How can the two accept the matter of, the son killed Laozi? For a moment, whether it was the Hebra's admiral army or Prince Laboon Ishur, the younger brother of Doma 7, their brains were buzzing, and their hearts were full of disbelief. However, the pirates attacked fiercely, and did not give Hebras and Laboon Ishur much time to think, so that there were only two choices before them, surrender or fight. But in the eyes of Hebras and Laboon Ishul, Marine is not trustworthy, but the reputation of pirates seems to be worse. At least Marine is also to maintain justice and order, even if their justice is not so pure, but it is also much better than pirates who only disrupt order. So the two discussed for a while, and then temporarily chose to support the alliance between Earl Shanna and Marine, and fight to the end with the noble faction and the Roberts Legion. After all, Doma Atava had already died in the hands of his younger brother Doma Menkenpas, and he paid the price for the assassination of Doma 7. What's more, both Hebras and Laboon Ishur don't want their country to be ruled by a group of pirates who do all kinds of evil and a group of unscrupulous nobles who only care about profit. Looking back on these years, the two of them have joined forces to lead the kingdom army, but they have dealt with pirates a lot. Not 10,000 pirates died in the hands of Hebras alone, and there are also 80% of them. Scandium. At this moment, the spear collided with the long sword, and there was a loud sound of metal impact, accompanied by a shock wave visible to the naked eye, which immediately turned into a howling hunting wind, blowing up a large amount of dust. Hebras only felt a huge force coming from him, which made him grunt. His palm trembled so much that he almost couldn't hold the long sword in his hand, and his body also involuntarily backed up more than 10 steps, even every step deep footprints were made on the bluestone bricks on the ground. Haha, I got it. A few pirates on the side laughed ferociously, waving their swords and going up to pick up bargains. However, in the next second, Hebras suddenly stopped his retreat, forcibly clenched the long sword in his hand, and spun a fist on the spot, holding the sword and slashing out. Pooh! A flash of sword light, the sharp blade easily tore flesh, cut off bones, cut 4 people in half at the same time in an instant, blood and internal organs full of fishy smell immediately spilled all over the ground. Advertisement. However, this sword did not scare all the pirates present, and even more pirates swarmed up, brandishing scimitars, harpoons, battle axes and other weapons to besiege Hebras. It has to be said that the pirates of the Roberts Legion are strong, and their morale is high under Bartholomew's inspiring fruit ability, and they are completely fearless. It's not good to chop up my subordinates as vegetables. Bartholomew shouted in a low voice, and immediately strode forward, holding the 3-meter-long Geierberg in his hand. As soon as he stabbed, he shook out the gunfire that filled the sky. Hebras' complexion changed slightly, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and barely swung his sword to parry. The long sword and the long spear collided continuously in the air, making a dense sound of dang, clang, clang, and between the bursts of sparks, waves of tumbling air were stirred up. Suddenly, Bartholomew found a flaw in the opponent, and immediately used Geierberg to swing away the long sword in front of him, opening his empty door wide. Not good. Army attack. Hebras' complexion changed suddenly, and he heard Bartholomew let out a low shout, and the 3-meter-long Geierberg pierced through the air like a poisonous dragon, and stabbed Hebras on the shoulder. The shoulder armor made of fine steel was not able to stop it for a moment, but was easily pierced by the nearly half-meter-long sharp spear blade, and pierced into Hebras' shoulder before being blocked by the bone. Hebras groaned in pain, and subconsciously grasped the long spear blade of Geierberg with his left hand, but was still pushed back by Bartholomew more than 10 steps. The blood flowing out of the city is also a line of blood formed on the ground. Field sky royal crazy. Suddenly, the air was turbulent, and under the control of a certain force, a violent wind pressure was formed, like a shock wave, and Bartholomew, who was caught off guard, was thrown away. Boom! Boom! The earth trembled, the roaring sound was endless, and thick and choking dust filled the air. Afterwards, Bartholomew in midair forcibly adjusted his figure, stood firmly on the ground, and the Geierberg in his hand hit the ground heavily, making a paean sound, shattering all the blue bricks on the ground. Give the layers crumble into extremely fast. Bartholomew stared straight ahead quietly, and said slowly, Prince Laboon Ishur. Paramesha controlling fruit, it really is a troublesome ability. I saw a middle-aged man with a golden crown on his head and a white robe with gilded patterns appearing beside Hebras. He frowned and looked at the wound on the latter's shoulder. The strange black pattern looks like it has been poisoned, and it seems like it has been cursed. His spear is poisoned, you need to treat the wound immediately. I know. Hebras' face was pale, and he barely stood still with his long sword hanging on. At this time, Lei Jiu came late, scratched the back of his head, and said embarrassedly, Sorry, Legion Commander, this guy is too flexible, I can't hold him back. It's okay, it just so happens that the two of them got together, let's get rid of it together. Bartholomew's tone didn't fluctuate at all, as if he was talking about something unimportant. But in the next second, he rushed out like a tiger hunting prey, and the Geierberg in his hand directly used sweeping thousands of troops, covering both Hebras and Laboon Ishul in response to attack. Advertisement. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Laboon raised her eyelids lightly, and suddenly stretched out her hand, causing the air in front of her to quickly condense, forming a transparent wall of air. Break. In the next second, Bashalamith shouted in a low voice, and the hands of waving Geierberg added a bit of strength, making the sharp spear blade appear like a phantom, almost tearing the air, fiercely hit the wall of air. Boom! A thunderous explosion occurred, setting off a wave of white air visible to the naked eye, raging in the city like a hurricane, and blowing away the nearest dozen or so warehouses. _W. Master Legion Commander. Bang. Lent's troops can't stop us, so I'll leave this place to you first. I'll pay attention to the main battlefield above. Cross nodded and explained. With a grim expression on his face, Regado jumped into the air 7 or 8 meters high. The silver wrist armor on his right wrist rotated at high speed, making a 0.7 buzzing sound, and finally shot down a ball visible to the naked eye. Spiral Cyclone. In an instant, Laboon Isher's face changed slightly, and he hurriedly grabbed Hebruz and retreated, with the help of the strong wind around him, making him extremely fast. Spiral Shock. Don't try to run. Stay away, this is no longer a battle we can participate in. Put me down, Lan Hai. Immediately, Cross drove the griffin under his crotch to fly towards the central part of Doma City. It was a fierce battle. Is it where Bashalami and Prince Laboon fought? Cross hovered in the sky on a copper griffin, and did not participate in Proti Vice Admiral's attack on Iron Knight Lent, but the huge movement from the central city area attracted his attention and made him speculate endlessly. Hebruz raised his spirits, broke free from the pull of Laboon Ishul, swung the longsword in his hand vigorously, and sent out a huge slash like a tide. Are you going to see it? Be careful. Many nearby pirates were blown into the sky, screaming like heart-piercing panic. There was another thunderous explosion, and the violent wind pressure fell from the sky, causing the surrounding ground to vibrate even more intensely. Guillaume on the side asked. Advertisement Chapter 93 blocking at the critical moment. Advertisement. Damn it, hasn't Marine come yet? Inside the invisible circular membrane, which is invisible to the naked eye, Laboon Isher looked anxious, while manipulating the air within the range to form sharp wind blades and violent storms, resisting the attacks of the two monsters in front of her in turn, while looking at in the direction outside the city. I want to find traces of Marine. It is a pity that although Doma City was built around the holy mountain of Gangoma, and their location is also in the middle of the holy mountain, there are many buildings in the city, and there are not a few buildings with a height of more than 10 meters, which completely blocked his sight. To be honest, as a senior of Bartholomew, he spent half his life in the sea, a great pirate with a bounty of 450 million Baileys, but today he was forced by two juniors to rely on Marine to rescue him. What a great irony. In the past, when he encountered danger or an enemy he couldn't beat, he could rely on his own ability to drive the strong wind to make him escape easily. But now, he is the prince of a country, and he has the duty to guard his own country. He is no longer that unscrupulous and independent pirate. What's more, he still has a companion now, and he can't leave his injured companion to escape alone. Hebruz on the side seemed to see through what Laboon Isel was thinking, and bluntly advised, you can't do anything, you should go first. Shut up, you're just a subject of my Doma royal family, and it's not your turn to teach me how to do things. Laboon Yisher scolded unceremoniously with a somewhat ugly face. Hee, don't worry, I will definitely die before you. Hebruz was not angry, but a smile appeared on his pale face. The two of them are old partners, and they cooperate with each other tacitly. Now Hebruz was shot by Bartholomew, and was eroded by the curse of Gaeberg, and his combat power was greatly damaged. Therefore, the common enemy of the two became Laboon Ishul as the main force. Hebruz assisted from the side. Therefore, even though Bartholomew and Regado are both powerful monsters, they can't take them down quickly. Stop being arrogant, B*********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** belt, the silver wrist armor on his wrist rotated at a high speed, causing a spiral cyclone like a shock wave to be released when he raised his hand. This white transparent spiral cyclone rotated at high speed, like a drill bit, across the entire street in a blink of an eye, and hit the tall stone wall. Bang! The ground shook violently, and a large hole with a diameter of several meters was drilled out of the tall stone wall, and a strong wind swept around, setting off a choking cloud of dust. Don't get hit, you'll die. Laboon Yisher pulled Hebrus to quickly dodge aside, not forgetting to remind him. I am not blind, I can see. Before Hebrus could finish his words, pain appeared on his face, and he half knelt on the ground covering the wound on his shoulder on the spot. Advertisement. The curse poison has spread. Damn it. Laboon Yisher's expression changed suddenly. I'm sorry, I can't heal you with the power of the curse poison, I can only let you die here. Bashalamiu shook his head, his tone full of regret. The Geabog in his hand is a famous spear in legends. It is not only strong and sharp, but also contains a mysterious power called curse poison. Like a curse, almost no cure. As long as a wound is made, it will be corroded by the curse poison, and after a while, the curse poison will spread throughout the body and quickly kill him. Anyway, since Bartholomew got Geaberg, he has never seen anyone survived after being scratched by the blade of a gun. The most important thing is that if the wound is on the hands and feet, the erosion of the poison can be prevented by cutting off the hands and feet, but Hebrus's wound is on the shoulder, or even close to the neck, and O can't do anything about it. Afterwards, Bartholomew naturally would not let go of such a good opportunity, and immediately rushed forward, holding the Geaberg in his hand, and used a planning spear, and stabbed at Hebrus. Thousands of troops are broken. Boom, boom. The powerful air blade burst out, and amidst the continuous roaring sound, it quickly pierced through a whole row of houses and buildings, and the ground of the street was cut with long and deep terrifying cracks. The surrounding ground shook violently, and the surging air waves spread outward, sweeping out in all directions, stirring up dust that soared into the sky. Let me go, the two of you can't escape. Shut up, I didn't say to run away. You can swim alone, but you will lose even faster if you take me with you. Do you think I want to take you with you? It's just that the royal army still needs your commanding ability. Stop F asterisk 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 G bullshit. Laboon Ishul dragged Hebraz and fled quickly, surrounded by strong winds, making his pace and speed even faster. At this time, Lay Jado was the first to stop in front of the two of them, and punched Laboon Yisir. Don't try to escape. Laboon's expression changed slightly, and she quickly crossed her arms in front of her chest, and then heard a muffled bang, and was punched on the arm by Lay Jado on the spot. Advertisement. The powerful force shook the surrounding air, and Laboon Ishur also retreated in response, plowing 2 long marks on the ground with both feet. Hebraz came to his senses, endured the severe pain in his shoulders and the weakness of his whole body, clenched the long sword in his hand and slashed at Regado in front of him. The long sword slashed on the silver wrist armor, splashing out a few stars. Is this the strength? With a fierce look on his face, Lay Jayu said sarcastically. At the same time, he shook the opponent's long sword away with his left hand, then stepped forward, and punched him in the chest. With a livid face, Hebraz immediately dropped the long sword in his hand, clenched his fist, and punched out without any tricks, colliding with Legardo's fist. However, the moment the two came into contact, Regado's fist trembled, as if spinning, and made a muffled bang sound, causing the air to explode, creating a circle of distorted air ripples. At the same time, the ground under the two people's feet also cracked 430 degrees, rapidly spreading into a cobweb-like crack. Well, in a blink of an eye, Hebraz's face was pale, his eyes were full of disbelief, his entire right arm was twisted, and bones were exposed on his shoulder. Haha, my spiral force is pretty powerful. Seeing this scene, Reggie laughed twice, showing a happy and satisfied smile, and stretched out his hand to grab Hebraz's head again. Stop. Laboon Ishur's eyes were about to split open, she couldn't help but let out a sharp shout, and was about to step forward to stop her. However, in the next second, a gray-white long spear pierced from the side, forcing Laboon Ishur to dodge sideways, giving up the attack on Legardo. I'm still here. B asterisk 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 D thing. Laboon Ishur looked at Bashalami who was blocking her in surprise and anger. But at this moment, when Regado was about to grab Hebraz's head, his expression suddenly changed slightly, and he immediately withdrew his hand and quickly backed away. Immediately, a blade of light appeared between Hebraz and Legardo, and with a soft kai sound, a deep crack more than 2 meters long was torn into the ground. Yo, Regado, you're still alive. Cross fell from the sky like a divine soldier, and stood beside Hebraz, holding a black knife, Autumn Water, looking at each other with piercing eyes, and greeted Regado warmly. It's you. Regado was taken aback for a moment, and then recognized Cross. Advertisement Chapter 94 Vacuum Field. Advertisement. Under the bright moonlight, Huo saw the face of the kid on the opposite side, and Lay Jado suddenly felt distressed, remembering the picture of his spiral steamboat tragedy in the opponent's hand. Rare steam iron ship. Good stuff. So much so that even now, if he wants to get a similar steam iron boat, he can't find a place to grab it. What's more, the last time he was thrown into the sea for no reason, and even the ship was destroyed. After all, it was the first time he suffered such a big loss after spending so many years in the sea. This young brother is the sailor who made you suffer last time. Bartholomew looked appreciatively at Cross, and said, we met last night and listened to Learpel and Morados told you, killed a man like Gecko Moria, very powerful young man. Legion Commander Roberts Bartholomew, a big pirate with a bounty of 547 million berry, a man that naval headquarters should pay attention to. Cross looked into Bartholomew's eyes without fear, and said with a smile, however, 20,000 marine elites have broken through the city gate, Iron Knight Lent alone can't stop 5 vice admirals from naval headquarters. If you escape now, there should be still time. He exaggerated the mouth very much, deliberately scaring the other party. Yeah, that's such a headache. Unexpectedly, Bartholomew didn't show too many reactions, he was neither shocked nor angry, he was even extraordinarily calm, and said in a calm tone, but it doesn't matter, the main army of the Kingdom of Bion has been defeated. The most elite guards have fallen into the hands of my allies, and as long as I defeat the 20,000 marines you mentioned, no one will be able to stop my plan to seize the Kingdom of Bion. After saying these words, Bartholomew spread his hands casually, pointed at Cross with the Geierberg in his hand, and said in a deep voice, as for you, a sailor with a bright future will only die here. Regado, do it. As soon as the words fell, cold murderous aura erupted from Bashalomayu's body like a tide, causing the surrounding temperature to drop a lot. Legion Commander, this brat belongs to me. A grim expression appeared on Lay Jado's handsome face, and he shouted excitedly, the silver wrist armors on his wrists turned quickly, making a buzzing sound, and the surrounding air immediately became chaotic, stirring up frenzied air currents. Wow, I'm going to get real right now. Cross let out a weird cry, but his expression became serious. Suddenly, there was a plop sound from behind Cross, and Hebraz fell to the ground, his face covered with black arabesque patterns, like some kind of jab. It looks extraordinarily weird. Advertisement. Hey, what's wrong with him? Curse poison. He was stabbed in the shoulder by Geierberg and he was corrupted by the legendary curse poison. Laboon Yishur's face was ugly, and she half knelt on the ground quickly, checking the status of her friend. Ah. Cross looked shocked, and said in surprise, curse poison, isn't it a legend? Hee hee, I'll help. I tried it. It's obviously real. Hebraz lay on the ground and smiled weakly. I'm going to die. Be careful, and remember your Marine promise. Damn you. Hold on to lousy. There must be salvation. Marine. Hey, you Marines must have a way to break the curse. Or ask the world government. They have 800 years the background. There must be a doctor with superb medical skills, or a rare and special medical demon fruit power. Hebras, B asterisk 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 D, UB asterisk 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 D, support lousy. Laboon Yisher looked panicked, even a little at a loss, as if grasping he asked Cross like he was on a life-saving straw, feeling like going to the doctor for an emergency. Quote. However, just as Cross was about to answer, he saw a tornado suddenly forming in front of him, like a berserk dragon rushing towards him crazily. Tornado storm. Regato roared, manipulating the huge tornado to move forward. Rumbling. The whistling wind ravages the sky and the ground, accompanied by thunderous roars. The huge tornado has an astonishing momentum. The more it rotates, the bigger it becomes, and the stronger the wind. It lifts up large chunks of bricks, stones and soil on the ground. B asterisk 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 D thing, mystery vacuum field. Laboon Isher roared furiously, opened his arms outward, and the invisible transparent circle expanded rapidly, covering a range of hundreds of meters in a blink of an eye. In the next second, all the air in the circular membrane was sucked away, forming a vacuum environment, and the huge tornado with a height of tens of meters shrunk rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into a ray of breeze, and finally disappeared completely. If it wasn't for the messy streets, the ruined buildings, and the phantom sounds in my ears, I would have thought that everything just now was just an illusion. I can't breathe. Cross blushed and realized that he couldn't breathe. Not only Cross, but even Bartholomew and Regato on the opposite side also noticed this, and their faces began to turn red little by little. Advertisement. Not good, we will die from lack of oxygen if this continues. Basha Luamiu didn't expect the other party to hide such a killer move, which really surprised him. Regato didn't speak, but he acted decisively. Deng even rushed out, heading straight for Laboon Ishul. The wrist armor on his wrist was still rotating at a high speed, as if two silver drill bits were formed on his hand. Although there is no way to use the air to form a large-scale powerful attack, the power of the spiral fruit should not be underestimated. Field earthbound. Laboon Ishul didn't even look at Lei Jado, and stretched out his hand, controlling the earth and rocks on the ground to surge up. A large number of blue bricks in the mud and rocks below seemed to be drawn by an invisible force, and rose upwards. Nani. Before Lei Jado had time to react, he found that a large amount of mud and rocks covered his body, sticking to his body layer by layer, wrapping his whole body like a giant bee pupa. Seeing that the situation was not good, Basha Luo Miao also reacted, and quickly stepped forward with Jia Li Heoberg in his hand, stabbing towards Laboon Isir's face like a dragon. Clang. Cross stopped Bartholomew, held Autumn Water, and slashed on Geoberg's spear blade, deflecting the opponent's attack. At this moment, Laboon Isher woke up a little bit from the anger, looked at the blushing Cross, and quickly returned part of the air to Cross' side. Hoo-ha. Cross breathed in the fresh air greedily, and gave Laboon Ishul a thumbs up with his left hand. Bang. At this time, a large amount of mud and stone wrapped around Regato's body exploded, allowing him to break free from the shackles of Laboon Ishul. B asterisk 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 D, returned the air. His face was flushed red, his expression was ferocious, and the veins on his forehead were protruding. He roared like a wild beast and galloped forward. Flying past, he punched Laboon Ishul. Advertisement Chapter 95 Shooter vs. Lancer. Advertisement. Not good. Laboon Yizher's expression changed, and she subconsciously pushed forward with both hands, turning the air in front of her into an invisible shock wave, and hit Legato's body fiercely. There was a muffled sound, and the strong wind spread. Regato flew back in midair, spat out a mouthful of blood with a wow in his mouth, and took a deep breath of fresh air with a pained and comfortable expression. But at this moment, there was an extra 10 centimeters long steel cone in his hand, and he threw it at Laboon Ishul. Conical. The steel cone flew out and turned rapidly in the air, like an armor-piercing bullet fired from a rifled gun, and there was a buzz sound, and a silver light flashed through the air like a shooting star. Laboon Yisher reacted extremely quickly, and controlled his body to shift without thinking. Unfortunately, the flying speed of the steel cone was too fast, coupled with the short distance, he couldn't dodge at all, and could barely avoid the vital points. Puff. Amidst the soft sound of entering the flesh, a piece of flesh was taken away by the steel awl. At this moment, Laboon Isher only felt a chill in his right abdomen, and a terrifying blood hole appeared, and blood gushed out like a spring. Afterwards, intense pain came from the originally numb wound, which made him feel as if thousands of needles were stabbing repeatedly on his right abdomen. Laboon Isher's face was contorted, and there was a painful inhalation sound of ho-ho from his throat, and he couldn't control his domain 520 feet immediately. The transparent circular membrane centered on him quickly shrunk and retracted into his body. Boom. Boom. Immediately, the air in this area began to flow back, forming howling winds that raged, and there was a loud thunder-like sound. This is really troublesome. Cross frowned, looking at Bartholomew who was running towards him against the strong wind. He couldn't help but feel a headache. Of the two main combat forces, one was eroded by some kind of curse poison, and they were almost dead. The other was also wounded in the abdomen, and his combat effectiveness must have declined. Call out. Bang. Suddenly, a shell containing hockey struck and landed on Bartholomew's side. A deafening explosion occurred, and hot flames mixed with billowing black smoke rose into the sky. Accompanied by violent air waves sweeping in all directions, the ground trembled. Advertisement. Bartholomew was knocked to the ground by the shock wave. After rolling a few times, he half-kneeled on the ground, holding open black lens bracket Gayabog close black lens bracket in both hands, and glanced around vigilantly. The armor on his body was stained by the smoke. Black and gray. Who? Ha ha ha. I didn't get killed by the bombing. Do you want to take a few shots from me? A middle-aged sailor with mixed black and white hair came across the street laughing, carrying an experimental single-man bazooka produced by the BIA Army Science Corps on his shoulders, and the marine coat on his back was rattling in the strong wind. Yo, Prody Vice Admiral, you're here too soon. Cross had a smile on his face and greeted him in a friendly voice. I haven't reached the age of retirement, little Cross. If you juniors keep rushing to the forefront, I'm afraid Mr. Kong won't give me a pension when I retire. Prody smiled boldly, his eyes tightened staring at Bartholomew. The muzzle of the bazooka he was carrying was always facing the opponent. Legion Commander. I know. Regado looked at Bartholomew with a dignified expression. The latter waved his hand. Although he couldn't see his expression with a full-face helmet, his eyes showed a bit of coldness. He said in a deep voice, one by one, it's really endless, it seems that Lent's side has been broken through. Hearing this, Lei Jia listened intently for a few seconds, and said seriously, the guns from the direction of the city gate are still ringing, it should be that there are too many sea chambers. The reserve troops couldn't stop it. Bartholomew nodded knowingly, and his cold eyes met Prody's. In the next second, Prody straightened his expression and pulled the trigger of the bazooka directly at Bartholomew. A shell containing armament hockey escaped, making a sharp piercing sound in the air. Call out. Bang. Almost at the same time, Bartholomew also rushed towards Prody, and nimbly dodged the oncoming shells, causing the shells to land in a dilapidated house behind him, causing a huge explosion of flames and explosions. Violent air waves. At this moment, Prody took the initiative to retreat, opened the distance between the two sides, and attacked Bartholomew with rocket launchers one after another. Boom, boom, boom. For a while, huge explosions roared endlessly, and groups of fireballs mixed with black smoke rose up from the ground, accompanied by raging air waves like a gust of wind, shaking the ground. Shooter versus Lancer. Cross saw the battle scene between the two, such a word suddenly appeared in his mind. However, Prody Vice Admiral, who has not completely aged, is in his prime, and his strength is quite strong. At least he said that he was comparable to Garp's fist when he was young, and he may not be bragging. Advertisement. Those cannonballs containing powerful hockey, if it were Cross to deal with them, they would really be disgraced and embarrassed. Little devil, where are you looking? At this time, Regado came roaring and galloping, the silver wrist armors on the wrists of both hands rotated at high speed, making a buzzing sound, and shot a nearly solid spiral air mass towards Cross. Cross jumped up and dodged the opponent's attack. Angry Snake. It really is a legendary ability. Laboon Isher looked at the strange creature above her head with a complicated expression, and muttered to herself. Laboon Isher stared at the angry snake, and did not speak for a long time. As a member of the Doma royal family, the meaning of angry snake is self-evident to him, but he can't accept that the other party colludes with foreign enemies in order to fight for power. Cough cough cough. But with a loud bang, a huge crater was blown out of the ground under his feet, and a large amount of gravel and mud collapsed and scattered in all directions. Hiss. Uncle Wong, after seeing my ability, you should understand that I am the man of destiny. Angry Snake lowered his head, showing arrogance in the golden vertical handle, and said, come with me, strong people like us those who are the masters of this country. At this time, Cross slowly crawled out of the big hole in the street, brushed off the dust on his body, coughed a few times, and said slowly, I didn't ask you to settle accounts, but actually attacked me. There was a loud sound of gold and iron colliding, a few sparks burst out, and a circle of air ripples visible to the naked eye quickly spread out. Hey, Laboon Ishul, I killed this guy, do you have any objection? With the last sentence, he asked in a serious tone. Attack of the angry snake. Moonwalk. Suddenly, a golden sound came from a distance, like a golden lightning split, causing Cross's complexion to change, immediately put the autumn water in his hand across his chest. A strange golden creature appeared in the sky, with horns on its snake-like head, swallowing snake letters from time to time. Its front feet were lion feet, its rear feet were eagle feet, and behind it was a long scorpion tail swinging at will. They can move freely in the air, as if there is an invisible solid under their feet. Because it was difficult to use force in midair, Cross fell like a meteor and hit the street heavily, making a loud boom, setting off a column of smoke several feet high. Clang. Advertisement Chapter 96. The fierce second round of fighting. Advertisement. Cross was angry, the aching wound on his chest still reminding him. It was this arrogant guy who made a mess of the whole situation and almost made his protection mission end in failure. The most important thing is that there are not many flying living creatures left in Doma City. Even if you don't want to use it, you can understand that only this flying bee ********* D has the ability to chase in the air and slaughter his own cuties wantonly. No, just after the decisive battle began, the Air Force was completely lost. Thinking of this, Cross's face turned black, and he almost wanted to hold his heart and shout, it hurts so much. Kill me. In the sky, Mankenpass turned his gaze to Cross, his golden vertical pupils showed a bit of coldness, and said in a serious tone, I don't know who escaped from the palace in embarrassment before. Humph. Cross sneered, didn't speak, stomped his foot on the ground suddenly, and the shadow behind him immediately emerged, turned into a pitch-black spear and stretched upwards, like a black lightning, straight towards man in the sky. Kempas, and go. Shadow horn gun. It's a pity that Menkenpass had already been on guard, narrowly dodged Scathach's attack, and flew down, pounced on Cross. Scandium. Bang. Cross slashed out with a knife and collided with the lion's claws on the opponent's forefoot. The powerful force immediately shattered the soles of his feet, and there was also a frenzied strong air current, which together with the dust on the ground around him also created a choking explosion. Fog. Menkenpass failed to strike, and immediately fell to the ground, and the tail behind him was like a whip, slamming at Cross. The speed was so fast that it made a woo sound, and even a golden afterimage appeared in the air. Cross didn't have time to react, so he was hit by the whip on the spot, knocking his whole body into the air, falling heavily on the ground a few meters away, and spat out a big mouthful of blood, staining the soil on the ground red. Ha ha ha, I got it. Menkenpass laughed wildly, and rushed forward quickly, but still cautiously stretched the tail of the angry snake, as if stabbing at Cross with a spear. Activation inorganic reincarnation. Almost at the same time, the earth, rumbling, suddenly shook, a large amount of mud and rocks surged up, forming huge tentacles like giant octopus one by one under the control of invisible forces, dancing towards Menken like a living thing. Paws lashed out. Nani. Menkenpass was a little dazed. He didn't expect 7 or 8 huge mudstone tentacles to appear on the ground, surrounding him, especially the nearest 10-meter-long mudstone tentacle, which was blown by a strong wind. Boom, 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 boom. Advertisement. Then, Menkenpass, who was caught off guard, was sent flying by a mud tentacle on the spot, and the surrounding mud tentacle was like a baton, either knocking him into the air or knocking him to the ground. It was completely hitting him like a baseball in turn. Cough cough cough. With a pained and proud expression, Cross covered his aching chest with one hand, propped the ground with the other and slowly stood up from the ground, cursing. Damn it, it hurts to hit someone with your tail, even armament hockey can't help it. Totally defensible. He looked down at his chest, and there was a red and swollen mark that was very conspicuous, and the claw wound that had been stitched up and stopped bleeding began to ooze again. On the other hand, Menkenpass was hit back and forth like a baseball, but his solid body did not suffer too much damage, instead igniting the anger in his heart. Bang! In the next second, the sharp claws almost tore through the air, directly breaking a mudstone tentacle into 2 pieces. Gaining a momentary respite, Menkenpass immediately suspended in midair, adjusted his body posture, and the tail behind him turned into golden lightning that filled the sky on the spot, slashing towards all directions. Angry snake thunderstorm. Mudstone tentacles about 10 meters long were shattered by the golden lightning, making a violent, rumbling sound. The sky was full of mud and gravel, and choking smoke and dust floated in the air, like it spread like a mist. Scattering bats. At this moment, countless shadow bats flew over, forming a huge swarm of bats and submerging Menkenpass in it. It's useless, this little trick doesn't work for me at all. Menkenpass yelled emotionally, rushed forward in midair, and rushed straight towards Cross, completely ignoring the harassment of hundreds of shadow bats. Cross showed disdain, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up, and he said softly, "Seal him, shadow box." As soon as the voice fell, countless shadow bats quickly approached Menkenpass, and quickly fused together to form a black cube, locking him inside like a big box. In the next second, with a fierce expression on his face, Cross put open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket into the scabbard at his waist, held the scabbard with his left hand, and held the handle of open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket with his right hand, making a gesture of eye chopping. One sword Ryakai mo lua wa slash. Kanglang. The black knife was unsheathed, and it was like a black lightning flash in the air, as if even the air was split into 2, and it slashed fiercely at the angry snake that had just torn the shadow box and escaped. Asking for flowers. 0. With a sound of Kai. The golden scales on the angry snake's back were torn apart, and bright red blood sprayed out. The severe pain made this noble marquis could not help but let out a painful cry. Ah! Advertisement. Rumbling. At the same time, the land behind Menkenpass was also divided into 2. A deep crack hundreds of meters long was torn in the ruined building complex, and the fierce wind set off the burning fire in the building complex. The raging fire was almost blown out. Hoo-ha, hoo-ha. Cross's face was a little tired, he was panting heavily, and beads of sweat were dripping from his smooth forehead. With this knife, he exhausted all his strength to completely cut through the scales on the opponent's body and severely injured the opponent. However, at the critical moment, the scorpion tail-like tail was like a spear, piercing the air with a woo sound, piercing directly from the copper griffin's abdomen, piercing its metal body easily like cutting tofu. Roar. Menkenpass raised his head and watched as Cross's golden vertical pupils suddenly shrunk to the size of a pinhole, and quickly changed from a beast to a human beast form. Bang. But die, one sword style first quarter moon. The huge roar sounded again, setting off a ring-shaped air wave visible to the naked eye, sweeping out in all directions like a shock wave. Menkenpass cursed angrily, but fell to the ground from midair weakly, with a bang sound when he fell, and a column of smoke several meters high was stirred up. Bang. 0. Flying activated creature -1. A** hole. Sure enough, he's not dead yet. Seeing this scene, Cross's eyes narrowed slightly, and his facial muscles couldn't help twitching. Then he tightly grasped open black lens bracket autumn water close black lens bracket, rushed forward quickly, and slashed at the head of Menkenpass who was lying on the ground. However, there was a hideous injury on his back where the bones were deep, and a large stream of blood was still flowing continuously. I saw that his body at the moment was as slender and vigorous as a cheetah, with a half-snake, half-human head with a pair of horns on it, arms as thick as a beast, with long golden hair, and his legs were slender eagle legs with sharp edges. His paws were covered with fine golden snake scales, as if wearing a layer of fish scale armor, and there was a scorpion tail-like tail swaying slightly behind the tailbone. B************ D. Angry Snake Lion Fist. Afterwards, the tail of the angry snake flicked at will, and smashed the copper griffin to the ground heavily. The terrifying force smashed its metal body to pieces on the spot. The majestic bronze griffin descended from the sky and stretched out its claws at Menkenpass on the ground, trying to penetrate his body. Advertisement Chapter 97 Marine arrives. Advertisement. Boom, boom. Amidst the loud thunderous sound, dozens of black and red lightning bolts burst out, wandering recklessly in the air. The terrifying power was as real as it was, making countless people terrified, and even phantoms appeared in front of them, as if they had seen both the sky and the earth turned into a gray and white strange space. Plop, plop, plop. A large number of pirates and soldiers fell to the ground as if they were cutting straw. All of them had white eyes, fainted and passed out. Conqueror's collision. Basha Lomio, Laboon Isher, Prodi Vice Admiral, Regedo and others all looked sideways, showing astonishment on their faces. That marine kid actually has the appearance of a king. It's really strange. Basha Luomiu was wearing a full-face helmet, so he couldn't see the expression on his face, but his eyes revealed an unbelievable surprise. Ha ha ha. Don't underestimate marine, you be ********* D pirate. Prodi Vice Admiral laughed wantonly with a cheerful expression. 280. I don't even have the posture of a king, but he actually possesses, it's so green, Menkenpass. Laboon Ishul lowered her eyes, and said softly to herself, the angry snake fruit of the phantom beast species plus conqueror's hockey, you really look like your ancestors. If you hadn't colluded with pirates to harm your country, I would really have a great chance to support you in the percent position. It's really strange, are all the young people these days so powerful? Lei Jado scratched his head with a troubled expression on his face. Here, Cross was fighting fiercely with Menkenpass, two powerful conquerors hockey collided with each other, and the dissipated energy destroyed the surrounding mess and made a lot of noise. Fortunately, the people around couldn't help but watch, and soon started fighting again. Prodi Vice Admiral, in order to show his demeanor as a senior, not to lose face in front of his juniors, also risked his life to start a fierce fight with Basha Luo Miao, and the shells containing percent hockey were thrown randomly as if they did not want money, and the continuous huge the explosion was as loud as thunder, and the latter was ashamed and embarrassed for a while. But Basha Lomio is really strong. Holding the slash wave issued by Gayabird, the power is not inferior to Prodi Vice Admiral's bombardment, so that everything Prodi Vice Admiral does is nothing more than just procrastinating. On the other side, Laboon Isher looked at the dying Hebras who was haunted by a terrifying curse, and after taking a deep breath, he also turned his head to fight fiercely with Regedo. However, Regedo still had a bit of arrogance, and he didn't despicably hold Hebras hostage. Instead, he deliberately pulled the battlefield away so as not to affect Hebras, who was powerless to resist. The battle of only 6 people was as dynamic as a battlefield of tens of thousands of people, and the violent waves caused by it made it impossible for the weak nearby to participate in it, so they could only go to other people to fight. Advertisement. Viscount Somon stood on the top of the ruins of a building, staring at the battlefield expressionlessly, and took a long time to look away. Pass my order, the whole army launches a general attack. Yes. A young knight in silver plate armor looked serious, he hammered his left chest hard, then turned and left. Behind Viscount Somon, on a street that wasn't damaged too much, thousands of guard soldiers were lined up in a long line, wearing black military uniforms and brown busts with angry snake patterns printed on their chests. Stand in this street. And following Viscount Suomen's order, the 1,000 soldiers who served as a reserve force immediately moved into action, rushing into the battlefield ahead like a black flame. Kill. Crush them. Musket salvo. Push up the artillery and blow up that fire point. Viscount Somon turned into a huge Carnotaurus, and rushed to the front of the attacking troops, roaring and knocking all the enemies away, while the guards behind him also charged bravely and bravely. The loss of a strong commander, coupled with poor communication, has led to the embarrassment of the royal army falling into a situation of fighting on its own. The soldiers can only fight on their own under the leadership of some officers, so facing the soldiers of the guards with a complete command, they were beaten very quickly, throwing away their helmets and armor, leaving countless corpses, and many simple positions that were originally constructed were lost one after another. It has to be said that Viscount Suomen has a good grasp of the fighter plane, and the soldiers under his command who are always ready to go are also very elite. They pierced through the defense line of the Kingdom Army like a sharp knife, and generalized the Kingdom Army's position from top to bottom, split into 2. Although there are many soldiers in the kingdom, there is nothing they can do. After all, a war cannot be won by a large number of people, especially when the equipment of both sides is similar. Apart from the wise commander, the elite level of the soldiers also occupies the most important position. At this point, the balance of victory is gradually tilting to one side, and perhaps it won't be long before the kingdom army of tens of thousands of people will completely collapse and lose. At the same time, a long flaming dragon appeared on the mountain road outside Doma City, stretching for several kilometers, looking extremely spectacular in the dark night. Looking at the huge city built around the tall holy mountain ahead, Sakazuki couldn't help sighing, it's finally here. Advertisement. That's right, after a long trek, the main force of Marine finally passed through the mountains with complex terrain and arrived at the city of Doma where the target is. At the same time, Gion, who has been monitoring the sky, also noticed the arrival of the main Marine, and immediately contacted Sakazuki with a phone bug to inform him of the situation in the city. Due to the urgency of the situation, Sakazuki did not have time to let the Marine officers and soldiers rest, so he led the frontline troops into the battle, and the curtain of the full-scale battle was completely opened. Although tired, the aggrieved journey all night also annoyed the Marines, and they showed a strong combat power at the moment. Iron Knight, seeing that the situation is not good, Lent immediately dropped down, led the remnants of the reserve force to withdraw to the city, joined the main force, and commanded the surrounding pirates to start a fierce street battle with Marine. Don't try to escape. Rakvar Vice Admiral took a big stride, and slashed at the one below, waving the weapon in his hand as he was chasing Sharent. Surrounded by the sound of hunting, the huge sword fell heavily on the dilapidated street, and there was a loud boom, cutting a big gap in the ground. Amidst the turbulent smoke and dust, Lent rushed out, fighting for one of the 52 sharp knives of Zongliang. Ji Qing splashed a bright knife light. Go away. Hus Vice Admiral had a ferocious expression on his face, let out a yell, and directly used moonwalk to fly into the air, stopping in front of Lent. With a sound, it collided with the famous sword, Ji Qing. 0.1 flames burst out in the air, and a burst of shock waves visible to the naked eye diffused out, stirring up dust on the ground like a gust of wind. Two Vice Admirals deal with me, they really think highly of me. Lent fell back to the ground involuntarily under the shock force, and then looked at the giant and strong man in front of him with flickering eyes, but his tone did not show any emotional ups and downs. Obsessively grab it and grab it. The bounty is 325 million Baileys. Iron Knight, Fabian Lent. Impel down will be where you will be for the rest of your life. Vice Admiral said in a voice like Hong Lei, with the momentum like a rainbow, tense staring at the big pirate in front of him. Hee, don't make jokes. Lent was unmoved, and stepped forward quickly, holding Ji Qing in both hands, and slashed at Hus Vice Admiral in front of him. Iron Flow Crazy Ride. Rumble. A huge cyan/wave burst out, resembling a human figure, galloping forward like a heavy cavalry. Advertisement.